and welcome to Gender Presentation and Youth, sponsored by Onion Belly Advertising. I'm Arrow Zed, creative director at Onion Belly and host of What Gender Is That Bug on WVAPX TV. We hope to provide some insights for those struggling with cross-dressing desires or gender identity. In this program, we will hear candid stories from cross-dressers who have revealed this important part of themselves to spouses and families. While an open, gender non-conforming identity may not be fully understood by science or society, we aim to offer healthy coping strategies. You will hear about dressing as your preferred gender in private, while still maintaining public-facing commitments to relationships and community expectations. We understand this is a very personal journey. There are no judgments here. This is a safe space to explore cross-dressing urges, embrace your feminine or masculine spirit behind closed doors, and fulfill those inner needs discreetly. No matter your situation, we hope this video provides invaluable guidance, and that it resonates whether cross-dressing is a lifestyle, a hobby, or something more. Let's begin. Recently I found a tape made in 1993 called Coping with Cross-Dressing. Figuring I was in for a laugh, wanting to dip my toe into reaction content, I sat down to watch it blind, and let's just say I was so pleasantly surprised that I ended up making it into a whole thing. We did a watch party in my Discord server, and then I interviewed a couple of my fellow queers. There's also clips of me shouting at the screen during my initial watch, but before we get into any of that, let's meet Joanne Roberts.
Hi, I'm Joanne Roberts, and this is the Coping with Cross-Dressing video.
Joanne doesn't share her story in this video, so I'll give you a brief overview that I pulled from her obituary. Originally from the Philadelphia area, she was attracted to women's clothing from a young age. In the 1970s, she discovered the Society for the Second Self and realized there were others like her. She started her own publishing company and produced Ladylike magazine. In 1985, she wrote and published the book Art and Illustration, A Guide to Cross-Dressing. In 1987, she proposed starting the Renaissance Education Association to raise transgender awareness and was the first managing director of Renaissance, which later became the Renaissance Transgender Association. In 1996, she partnered to create the Transgender Forum. She ran the Paradise in the Poconos Crossdresser event, which this tape was filmed at. Later, she moved the event to Rehoboth Beach and called it Beauty and the Beach, which is adorable. She authored the Gender Bill of Rights in 1990 and published a who's who of the transgender community. She was a fierce advocate who spoke out on transgender issues, and unfortunately died of lung cancer in 2013. Honestly, a video like this made in 1993 is absolutely radical.
Now, some of you watching this video probably believe that's not possible in your case.
It's totally possible.
We hope to show you that it is possible.
And then she gives a brief history of cross-dressing, including womanless weddings.
Cross-dressing has existed in every culture and in every historical period. Some of the time it's been acceptable, and some of the time it has not. Before World War I, cross-dressing was acceptable in this country. There are historical accounts of womanless weddings as fundraisers and similar kinds of events.
I had to look this up. I was curious. Honestly seems like an excuse to make fun of class, gender, sexuality, racial, and other stereotypes by leaning into every possible stereotype. I wouldn't recommend it, but links are in the basement.
Female impersonation on stage was considered an art form, and one impersonator, Julian Eltinge, was so popular that he had a theater. Was it acceptable, or was it just comedy? Let me break this down. Julian Eltinge toured as just Eltinge, didn't really explicitly talk about his gender on playbills or promotional materials, and did not present a caricature of femininity, instead just was a woman on stage. And that's hot. I dig it. We stand. But he lost his career in the 1930s when culture started cracking down on cross-dressing in public. Imagine losing your job just because people don't want you to wear clothes. Man, so glad we don't live in a society where that could happen again. And cross-dressing is a hot topic in 1993 due to movies like The Crying Game and Paris is Burning.
She talks about some recent movies that feature cross-dressing, and I was like, those can't be the only ones. So I looked. From 1990 to 1993, the movies that came out that featured cross-dressing, this is the list that I found. Actually, I compiled it from 2 separate lists. Mrs. Doubtfire, Orlando, M. Butterfly, which was directed by Cronenberg? Can we watch that? Y'all want to watch that with me? Switch, Nuns on the Run. Love that movie. I remember renting it at Hollywood Video only because it had Eric Idle in it. And I've seen it like 3 times because honestly, I have no idea why I watched this so many times. You know, like you're 10 years old, you go to the video rental store, the world is your oyster. You could grab anything. And I grabbed Nuns on the Run multiple times. Anyway, I digress. There's more to the list. Ladybugs, Ballad of Little Joe, Vegas in Space, which is a trauma film. Can we watch that together? You wanna like cuddle me on my bed and watch weird cross-dressing movies? Ooh woo. The Sex of the Stars, which is actually about being trans. Legendary Panty Mask. Okay, so we have to watch this one. Like, I'm not even asking, I'm telling. We have to watch this one. It doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. And honorable mention, Just One of the Guys, made in 1985. I know that's earlier than 1990, but Just One of the Guys, I've seen way too many times. Anytime I found out it was coming on TV, I actually would set aside time to watch it. I didn't know why, but I really liked that movie growing up. There's a lot of really queer stuff that I liked growing up that didn't make sense at the time.
Now, no one knows why people cross-dress.
It sounded a bit ham-fisted, but okay. I get that she's trying to put things in plain language in order to get to the meat of the video, but she's right. I looked it up, and honestly, maybe the blunt answer is just summarizing the general medical consensus, which still prevails. I looked at Psychology Today, United Brain, Cleveland Clinic, Mount Sinai, and all of them say that transvestism and gender dysphoria have no specific cause. It's just one of those things that are probably a combination of nature and nurture. Then she charts typical timelines for many gender nonconforming individuals. Your mileage may vary. I didn't fit into that timeline myself.
But no one theory describes everyone.
Yo.
We can, however, say some very general things about cross-dressing.
This video's woke as fuck.
Most cross-dressing starts at an early age, by 5 or 6. It starts as play, and it may disappear for a while. And then later, during puberty, it comes back strong, and usually, but not always, with strong erotic overtones. But this eroticism diminishes with time, just as it does with every aspect of adolescent sexuality. Now, while science can't tell us why people cross-dress...
She says science can't tell us why people cross-dress. A statement as emphatic as can't tell us invites argument. But honestly, people need to hear it.
So forget about a cure, because there is no such thing.
Again, the bluntness is welcome. I'm not a cross-dresser. For me, compulsive cross-dressing was a symptom of a bigger problem, gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria is a chronic aversion to physical or social attributes of one's own sex or gender that they were given at birth. People with gender dysphoria will typically seek to relieve this stress by assuming the physical appearance of a new gender that better corresponds with their psychological gender. But I looked this up too. Transvestism isn't a disorder, and thus has no cure because it's a behavior. There is a thing called transvestic disorder, according to the DSM-5, and it's treated with therapy and sometimes antidepressants, but check this out. The therapy and antidepressants are for the secondary issues, like compulsion and anxiety due to societal pressures. Those are the symptoms that are being treated, not transvestism. If you're trying to treat things like transvestism, queerness, gayness, homosexual attraction, gender dysphoria, being transgender, if you're trying to cure that with therapy, that's called conversion therapy. Look it up. It's bad for you. Lots of medical professionals have gone on the record saying it is extremely bad for you. And from personal experience, I can tell you, conversion therapy is very bad for you. It's terrible for your mental health. Would not recommend. 0 out of 10. -1. If I could give -1 stars, I could, but the website won't let me. We're going to see that for a lot of people, it's just part of who somebody is.
Well, that's enough boring theory. Let's talk with some crossdressers. How long have you been crossdressing?
Pretty much all my life.
Man, we get right to Jody, and Jody looks so anxious. Poor girl. You're gonna see this throughout the entire video, but I can't tell if it's her face. Like, maybe she doesn't do well on camera. Maybe that's just how she looks. Maybe she's terrified of going on the record. I don't know, but we all picked up on it. Let me just say that these women are absolutely gorgeous. Our collective gut instinct says that they might actually be trans eggs. Let's talk about eggs. Much like the homosexual is said to be in the closet and come out when they no longer wish to hide, an egg is a term used by the transgender community to refer to a person who has not realized or been able to admit to themselves their identity. Once this is realized and admitted, there is often no going back. This realization is called hatching. You can't uncrack an egg. But I haven't been able to follow up on any of the crossdressers from the original tape. If you have any information, sound off in the comments. I would love to know what they're up to. I would love to know if their kids found out. I hope they ended up okay. But since I haven't been able to follow up on them, I'm going to take them at their word that they are cross-dressing cisgender heterosexual men. But I mean, game recognizes game. To cross-dress is to wear clothing typical of the other sex. A transgender individual is a person whose gender identity does not correspond with the sex registered for them at birth.
You want to move to
Are
me
these
now?
like trans women?
Oh, ever since I was a child.
2/3 of them said that they did it since childhood. Nancy Ann had a rather permissive mother, which is interesting, either via personal ideology or lack of energy or both, who let her play with lingerie while mom did chores. I don't know what that means, but okay.
Just about pre-kindergarten, when I played with my mother's lingerie, it was almost a babysitter for me.
As far as actively cross-dressing, probably 3.5 years.
I've been presenting female for about 6 years. Hi! Hi, Eric. Introduce yourself to the folks at home.
I'm 27 years old. 27, right? I'm 27. I'm 27.
Man, you tell me! I wasn't there.
I'm a trans man, pronouns he, they. I have a husband. He's over here. He gave a little wave. I haven't been closeted really ever in my life. I kind of just have been. I'm not very good at being closeted, honestly. Like, I don't get how to hide things. But there was a time in my life where I just didn't really know what was going on with me. I was never really comfortable as being like referred to as feminine or really being viewed as feminine, which interestingly enough has changed. But I figured out that I was trans in high school. It was like my junior, maybe senior year, I think, was when I really figured it out. And I already wore like male clothes. I didn't really wear dresses or skirts that often. I hadn't worn a bra since like freshman year. More social things like clothes, and it was a running joke with my friends that they just called me sir or mister. I might be able to find it. There was a picture of I for some reason just decided to wear like somewhat nice clothes. I had black slacks on, like dress shoes, white button-down shirt. I had rainbow suspenders. They were glittery rainbow suspenders. I don't remember what else I was wearing, but I got to school and my friends were like, "Ooh, you look nice." And I was like, "Yeah, look out, Pinocchio. There's another real boy in town." And that was before I knew.
I love that so much.
that
That
was
is
before I really knew, but I think that was probably like one of the first cracks in my egg was that I felt really good that everyone was like, "Oh, you look so good as a boy," and I was like, "Really?"
nice, very nice. So this has just been something that you just gradually started doing since high school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, even before high school, like I remember elementary school, maybe like third grade, and I wore like it was atrocious. It was an all jean outfit. I even had a jean baseball cap.
God, what year was it? Was it 1992? Like that's such a 1992 thing to do.
It was early 2000s or like mid 2000s, maybe. I had this all jean outfit, jean ball cap, and everything. I was wearing gray cowboy boots, though.
You didn't have
And
denim cowboy boots.
apparently not.
It
I
should have
had gray.
completed the look.
So I went out to play with like the other neighborhood kids. It was in the summertime. It was really hot. And I had long hair then, too. So I didn't have a hair tie. So I just like coiled my hair up and put it under my hat. And when my brother and I were called back in for dinner, my dad, like, I ran up the steps and was going to run inside. My dad, like, stopped me and he was like, "Sorry, they can't play anymore today." And I was like, "Dad, what do you mean?" And he was like, "Oh, shit, I didn't realize that was you. You looked like a random neighborhood boy." And I was like, "Oh, sick." So I enjoyed being ambiguous and wearing things that weren't expected. And that was one
like that
fun...
top. I did not expect
Yeah.
you to answer the phone in that top.
Oh, it's a super cute outfit. Hold on. There's
Oh my
a
God.
matching skirt. Hold on. Can you see it?
You look adorable, sir.
Thank you. I'm very sunburnt and this helps with my shoulder.
I
The
bet.
worst part. My sisters were always arguing over which one of them was Blossom. And because there were three of us, I have the two older sisters.
You were
it was
obviously
like,
Buttercup.
right.
The boy one.
No,
the boy girl.
They had me as Bubbles most of the time.
What? Why? Because
you
you have such a sunny disposition?
Because I was the crybaby.
Aww.
So, but whenever they would do that, I would just be like, I want to be the professor. And like, I never thought that was strange. My favorite movies growing up were Princess Bride, Sleeping Beauty, Neverending Story. So for all three of those, the characters that I idolized most and wanted to be, I wanted to be Prince Philip. I wanted to fight a fairy dragon for a princess. I wanted to be Wesley. And I wanted so badly to be Inigo, actually. Like, Wesley, I was like, yeah, I could be that cool. But Inigo, I was like, no, that is the type of person that I need to be. And I also wanted to be Atreyu, and I remember as a kid, this was probably the first time that I ever like cross-dressed, was I had long hair, but I would do like a little like bubble braid type thing where I would like have it like that, like
so it almost looks like that,
loose.
like
Yeah,
that Prince
like
haircut.
like,
yeah, it really does.
And I would I had an outfit that looked somewhat similar. Like it was the tan, kind of like moleskin type fabric. I had a little like Barbie purse or something that I pretended was his satchel.
That is so cool.
I dressed as Atreyu, and I just really wanted to run around the country with a horse. That's why I wanted to be Atreyu.
Atreyu was cool.
It wasn't for any of the like, oh, that's an attractive person I want to look like. It wasn't for I want to be the hero. It wasn't.
Atreyu has the energy. Atreyu has the action. Yeah. Atreyu is the reason that story even happened.
I am Amelia Wallace. She, they pronouns. I am a 31-year-old. I go by Amy most of the time.
Fun story, we met through a mutual ex-girlfriend.
We did, yes. Yeah, that was a whole train wreck.
It was.
But, it ended better than we could have expected. Currently, I identify as gender fluid, meaning my presentation and my own perception of my gender changes day by day, sometimes during the day. Primarily identifying as female, but spending a lot of time in that fun, non-binary middle ground a lot of the time. And on the rare occasion, I do swing back towards being happy with my assigned gender at birth, which, those are fun days. I like those days. This is more of an internal kind of feeling rather than an external expression. It's more like trying to figure out what is bringing me euphoria today. What am I enjoying today about my like expression, about how I am putting myself out into this world, and getting a sense of euphoria from things that I associate with masculinity, or at least with my masculinity.
Hot.
To the point where it's like, okay, yeah, like today I am feeling more male than female, and that does happen sometimes on rare occasion, but it does. And not super related to this, but I'm a rabbit as well. I began to identify as something other than cis in about 2011. Actually, like the first thing I said when I started questioning my gender identity was, I think if I had to put words to it on, I would identify as a gender fluid pansexual person. And I felt like that was too wordy at the time. I felt like that was too complicated. So I was like, I'm just going to be a bisexual trans woman. And
It's
it's amusing to
shorter.
me that years later, what's that?
Gender fuck.
Absolutely, yes.
So anyway.
Gender, I hardly fucked her.
Ah!
But yeah, 2011, I began to introduce myself as female in 2017 to like friends and family. I started medically transitioning in 2021, and I wouldn't say I started really dressing particularly femininely, which is a big part of the way that I present myself, until late 2022, I would say. I would have been 18 in 2017 when I started questioning my gender identity,
Okay.
and 24 when I began to primarily present myself as female, and then medical transition another 4 years later at 28.
So, why and when did you decide to tell your partner that you were a crossdresser?
So, they have been married a very long time. Nancy Ann was married 17 years before her wife found out about the cross-dressing, and she did everything manly to bury it and couldn't hide it.
I tried every experiment under the sun to do that, and I went through all of the normal experiences of throwing clothes away and trying to grow a beard and do everything that was manly and macho in order to bury it, but
listen, sister, you're trans.
I came to the point
Admit
where I
it.
realized I could no longer hide this or want to hide this anymore.
Egg. Babs says that soon after they got married, she had a role reversal need.
Probably soon after, where I felt the need perhaps for role reversal.
Is that a kink? Wild. Her wife was mega supportive.
She's always been very supporting.
The two of these talk about a 20-year marriage of almost complete lack of communication. For Jody, 2 years in, her wife found lingerie.
She found my clothes in the trunk, and that was probably 20 years ago. We've been married for 22 years, but it's taken us probably 18 years to really face it and to know there's other people out there. And
18 years after that, they were finally able to talk about it. For all we know, this could be Jody's first time out in public, presenting as female, and maybe that's why she looks so nervous. This is like when I first thought...
How did you go about explaining
Wait a minute.
to your partner that you were a crossdresser? Babs, you want to go first?
Hold on. This is like when I first had, like, concrete trans feelings. I thought I was a crossdresser. And I told my wife. And I wanted it to be like an off-duty kind of thing. I wanted it to be like a... Like, I remember trying to tell her I thought I was a crossdresser. God, this is uncanny, but this is like 1993, so I guess it makes sense. When I hatched as transgender, I was outed by my wife. I didn't have a chance to come out. She found out. She read private correspondence between me and my brother, and there was a fight. But before that, I'd say about 7 years before that, I told her I wanted to be a crossdresser. I told her that it was getting to be undeniable. This feeling I had that I had to dress as a woman off duty. And at the time, I was in the military. I told her that not only did I want to dress as a woman, I wanted to go out in town and be perceived as a woman, go by a different name, the whole ball of wax. I don't think it went over very well. At the time, she said that it wasn't compatible with our relationship. She asked if I just wanted to do it in the bedroom, and the answer was no. I wanted to publicly be a woman. I guess I was off and on wearing women's clothing, usually just undergarments, under my uniform for 7 years before I actually hatched as transgender.
In my very first conversations with my partner, and I mentioned that I used to think I was trans, and we kind of joked that he kind of was like, "Oh my god, I can fix her." I was pretty deeply closeted at that point. I've had this kind of recurring feeling throughout a lot of my life and a lot of my journey that, like, if I'm happy enough, then I'm happy enough. And to me, at that time, it meant if I knew that I was trans or that I was something outside the gender binary, that was enough for everyone else. It didn't matter what I did beyond that as long as I knew. And, that's not nearly the case.
I think we both have the attitude if it makes something that makes each other happy and doesn't hurt anyone.
That's right.
We go with it.
Did you
Looking
just
like a woman doesn't
come
hurt
out and
anybody.
tell her, did you have any materials or information?
It's really interesting when they talk about resources. Open communication with their partner, A+.
Felt I had the need, and I felt maybe something's wrong, or maybe.
But they also mentioned the library. We love a library.
I don't think I even understood it then, and she didn't. So we got some books. We went to the library, and
Before I told my wife, I had read considerable amounts of information from studies and magazines and books from the library.
we even read the Playboys and all that.
Playboy?
We even read the Playboys.
And in the case of Nancy Ann, she did research ahead of time.
I'd read a lot of case studies, trying to see where I fit in. How did I apply to the experiences of others? When you're married, you think your wife knows everything about you and that you know everything about her. So this was a bit of a surprise for her. But as we talked, the thing that came out that was most impressive to me was that she became concerned about me.
When everyone has gone.
I decided, well, I'm going to try to provide her with all the information I can and let her take that information and digest it at whatever pace she felt comfortable with. And we would talk more about it. And I didn't rush her, and she's developed into a very supportive wife without
That is
really
so great.
any efforts on my part.
There is a consistent emphasis on strong, loving relationships, accepting partners, and communication. And I love that.
So I guess we just really did it day at a time and talked it over and talked and grew together.
What a supportive
till
marriage.
We got to where we're at now.
It was very important, the communication, seeing that there were other real people out there like us that had some of the same honesty in their relationship, the men having the same kind of desires, and
exposure and
sort of
community
helped each other,
are
and
such
it
a big
grew
deal.
Until
Okay.
this one particular
So that's why in your present day, that's why there's so many trans people right now, because exposure and community. The internet has enabled it. And the conservatives that are saying it's like some kind of social contagion are absolutely stupid, because it's like, no, like when you just tell people, hey, these feelings that you have are okay, suddenly more people feel like it's okay to have these feelings. What a goddamn shocker. So you didn't actually have to tell anybody, did you?
No,
Like, was
not
there an
really.
official, like, hello, I am transgender, I am going to be wearing clothes now? Like there wasn't anything like that, was there?
There kind of was, because in my senior year of high school, when everything was like getting ready for graduation and like they gave out like the first graduation, you have to get your cap and gown and like all that. And they had the dress code for that year was that boys had to wear white button down with a black tie and black slacks and black shoes. Girls had to wear a white dress that was above the knee.
Above the knee. What?
It had to be above the knee because they didn't want it showing under the graduation gown.
Oh, I was thinking like, man, school dress codes are usually like, heaven forbid, a female show her thigh.
Yep. Also, the boys were going to be wearing blue cap and gowns, and the girls were wearing white cap and gowns. So there's also a lot of things that I've gotten more comfortable with over the years, but I was never
unnecessarily gendered.
Yes. This was the first year that they had done that, was the year that I graduated. Every other year, it was just like everyone wears blue. But for my year, for some reason, they decided to do blue and white. The part that I had an issue with was the short dress. Back then, I avoided wearing any sort of like skirts or dresses or anything, and especially anything that was short. So I talked to the principal. At that time, I just knew that wearing the girls' dress code made me incredibly uncomfortable. So I went up to him, and he was a pretty cool guy. Like, he was really friendly, and like I had talked to him a couple of times before. He had been the vice principal at the school that my sisters graduated from, so he had already known me and my family. So when I went to talk to him, I was like, hey, with the graduation dress code, would it be okay if I just wore the boys' dress code? Like, I'll conform to the dress code. I don't want anything wild. I just really don't want to wear a short white dress. And he was like, well, it's only going to be for a couple of hours. Right after, you can change into whatever you want, blah, blah, blah. Like, he was telling me that like I would just have to put up with hours, and I was like, that makes me really uncomfortable. I don't like that. Like, I never even wore shorts. For gym class, I would wear like yoga pants. He was like, well, think about it this way. This is going to be as momentous of an occasion as your wedding. Are you going to be wearing a suit to your wedding? And I was like, yeah, probably. Yeah, he was like, oh, well, for this one day, you're just going to have to put up with it. So I went back to my class, and I was talking to a couple of my friends about it. I think talking to them was when I realized that I was trans, because like they were like, well, why does it make you so uncomfortable? They were like, you can wear something that's like just barely long enough to cover. They allowed us to wear like tights or like leggings that were mostly like flesh toned. That was in the dress code. But I was like, no, I think that it's just conforming to like the girls' dress code that makes me feel icky. Like, we kind of like talked a lot about why that was, and I eventually was like, oh, yeah, actually, because one of them asked me. She was like, well, are you even a girl? And I was like, well, that is an interesting question.
It's always great when like you find the shell of the egg and someone asks you that really basic question like, hey, are you this thing? And it's like,
right. Like, you can start to see the egg. And beginning of that year, or no, it might have been the beginning of the year before, when one of my friends had introduced me to one of her teachers that I then got in my senior year. But Dr. Emerson, I adore that man, because the first time that he met me, he was introduced to me, and then my friend was like, oh yeah, and this is friend. And he was like, oh, what are your pronouns? And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, well, are you a girl? Are you a boy? And I was like, girl? And he was
Professor Oak.
Exactly. He was like, that sounded like a question. Are you sure? And I went, no, but I'm just kind of vibing right now. And he was like, okay. That was like maybe a year before. And then, so that might have been like the first time that someone had questioned it and made me question it, because I was like, well, why is he asking unless I present differently? And then with the graduation thing, talked to my friends, and they actually wrote up a letter to the principal. And they were like, hey, it's really wrong that you're making him do this. And they made it a petition. They brought it to all of the lunch periods, and they had people sign. They went to Facebook and Instagram and things like that, and they brought that issue out in the open for me. And I remember crying when I found out that they made a Facebook post about it and were asking people for their support. Because
that's so
like,
beautiful.
I had no idea that they would do that for me. Like, I thought it was a really, really small problem and that I would basically just have to get over it. I genuinely thought, I was like, it is just one day. And then after that one day, I can just I'll be graduated from high school. I can live my life however I want. It was the insistence of my friends and my classmates that I be treated as myself that allowed me to wear a blue cap and gown and pants at my graduation. So my graduation photos actually look like me, not me in a costume. I still love all of them for that.
Nancy mentioned something, you pointed it out again, and so I want to explore a little bit about how you found out about other people who cross-dress, and what did it feel like for you to find out that you weren't the only one?
God, could you imagine?
It was a real
pre-internet
good feeling. Not only just other people, but other couples were very important because at first, like my wife's first interpretation, she was worried I was gay.
Okay, so why do cishet people assume that men who cross-dress are gay? Like, is it because if he presents as a woman, then that means he must want to be a woman, which, fair. And if he wants to be a woman, then that means he must want to be with a man, and that's because that's what women are supposed to do. But since he isn't a woman, he's a man, that makes him gay? Like, calm down, lads. It's not that deep. She's pretty. That's it.
Yeah, it's true. He is super stand lesbian.
It just
Maybe
made so
you are,
much difference
sister.
to us, and
Maybe you are a
I think we've
lesbian.
all found really great friends through this. It's I think our best friends in the world we found through cross-dressing.
So you find out that everybody's just like you and they're normal.
Everybody's
in
into
their own way.
Magic
Like
the
term
Gathering.
that you use normal. There's sort of a normalcy about it.
Maybe are better friends because there's a certain amount of honesty.
Oh, yes, definitely.
You really don't have too much to hide.
It's wonderful.
And
That's why I prefer to have gay
certainly
friends.
makes things much easier, much more open.
There's definitely an element of honesty in finding community. To finally not have to hide who I am helped with so many different things in my life. There were so many years of my life where I felt that there was something fundamentally wrong with me. I had been told I was an addict, a sex addict. I had been told that I wasn't really a woman, I was just a flamboyant gay man, and I wasn't really a flamboyant gay man, I was just a sex addict with daddy issues, and if I have daddy issues, then what that really means is I have to get right with my heavenly father, and being able to peel back all of those layers of control, all the lies that people have been telling me and that I'd been telling myself, it was liberating. I ended up, before I even started hormones, before I hatched, everybody thought I looked 42. And then afterwards, people thought I was 27. There's just something about living authentically. Nancy Ann continues to talk about putting on a masculine front and says, I wish all men were cross-dressers.
You eliminate the front you might, or the facade you might put on with other people. Those walls come down. They're no longer necessary. You can be who you really are and be honest about everything you say and not worry that somebody's going to, condemn you for what you said. So that honesty it's a rarity. It's almost like at times I wish all men were cross-dressers.
You don't even have any of that. It's just gone. You just have a true relationship. And even when you're cross-dressing, it's not like you're always talking about cross-dressing either. I mean, you talk about art or whatever you're into or whatever.
Hell yeah.
Theater or anything you want to do. It's people are just a lot more open and alive, I think, when they're cross-dressed.
I found out about other people like me when I was younger, but the perception was always, that's for someone else. My mother always put it to me like, those people are deviants. Those people, they aren't doing the right thing. When I saw a transgender person on television, it just seemed like something that was so unobtainable for me. You had to have all these surgeries and go through all this paperwork, and it was nightmarish and terrifying to me. I came out as bisexual in high school, and my friends just accepted it. I had gay friends in high school. That part was actually easy. It was finding other people that dressed differently. I didn't really find that until much later. Around the time that I hatched, I was on message boards as a woman. I was actually a woman via correspondence for a very long time. It wasn't until the person I was talking to, when I admitted that I had not been born as a woman, they asked me, have you ever thought that maybe you're trans? And my earth shattered in that moment. Having people that I could rely on, people like me, kept me alive.
All right.
Did you ever feel like you had to settle because options were not available to you necessarily, that you were resigned or settling for something and then that was fine and you tried to make do with what you had?
I don't know if it was settling necessarily so much as like I thought that like what other people were doing with their own identity was fine for them. It's what they want to do, and if that's what they want to make them happy, then great. So I didn't even realize that I was settling, I don't think. Um I think what changed was honestly like actually getting to meet and interact with other trans people in the real world. Um because like then getting to see like exactly how good it could be and what I could be doing differently and, experimenting a bit more than I had been.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
it was all internal before, and my only experience with trans people had been online. Like what started like cracking my egg all the way back in like 2011 when I started initially considering myself transgender was going onto image boards specifically for My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. And I didn't end up on the far right, so I had to be trans. There was this thread on this image board titled the LGBT Hayride. I checked it out mostly out of this
Hayride?
big curiosity.
That's so cute.
Hayride. This board was called Hey for like how are you? So this was the Hey ride.
What do you feed a gay horse?
Hey. But yeah, the concept of identifying as something other than my gender at birth was like the only way I'd ever seen it in like trans people on the news, trans people in media that I had ever seen was it was a thing that people like had always known. And to me, I didn't feel like I had always known because I didn't know it was an option for me. So like when people are like, well, if you always knew and I didn't always know, then that's not me. And later on I figured out that it wasn't this sense of like I always knew I was not my gender assigned at birth so much as like there's always been parts of my life that didn't make sense until I understood this framework of being a gender other than my gender assigned at birth. There was never this sense because again like it was a group that I never thought was available to me. There was never this sense of like, oh my god, I'm the only one, and then finding this group was finding out that I was not the only one. It was a little bit inverted in that sense. Finding community since then has been a lot more about being interested in people's stories because I am genuinely very interested in people's stories and their journeys and so on. I like having the resources to tell people like if you want to call Planned Parenthood, this is the number to do it, and this is what worked for me, and this is what I've been on. Tell them whatever doses. And I like to listen to other people for the same reasons. I want to be able to tell them like, well, this is what works for my partner, or this is what worked for my friend, because as much as this community has in common, there's a lot that is different and a lot that needs to be different, and none of this is one size fits all. So it's more about finding the commonalities and finding common ground there, and being able to provide support either through those commonalities or from understanding like this is how it's different for me and this is why.
So it was less about like, wow, there's other people like me, so much as it's like, hey, wow, there's other people who are less along in my journey than I am.
Or more along in their journey, honestly. Like, I want to know how people have done it before. Like, I recently started talking to a friend who she started cosplaying as female characters in like 2004, before she even knew what the word was for trans, before this existed, after, growing up as a teen in the late 90s. And like,
that's a fucking move.
Having like, and then, like, having a group of friends who she tried to come out to who are like, you shouldn't do it because you wouldn't be a pretty girl. Like, first of all, Jesus fucking Christ. But also, like, the entire landscape is so
my
different
friends
now
didn't tell
than
me
it was
that,
then.
but I
Yeah?
told me that.
Oh.
Growing up in the 90s, Like,
Yeah.
I told me that I wasn't going to be a pretty girl. I saw older trans women who, in their 50s or 60s, had realized who they are, and I just saw that, and, like, I'm not trying to be ageist, okay? I'm not trying to, like, age shame anybody, but there's a lot of changes that happen when you're that old and have a testosterone body that are hard to reverse, are hard to change. And I think that's why I felt like I was a ticking clock, because I was like in my late 20s and early 30s when I started having these thoughts, and I was thinking, like, when am I gonna do this? You know, like, am I gonna wait until after my kids are grown to do it? Am I gonna wait until after my kids have left the house and then I can finally divorce my wife? Like, these were thoughts that I had, and it was rough because I would look at myself in the mirror and I looked like a 42-year-old man, even though I was only 28. And I'm like, you'll never be pretty. And of course, like, I am now. Some days I don't believe it, but most days I do, and it's wild how, like, simple things like 2.5 milliliters of estrogen and like a little bit of makeup and a clean shave will do that for somebody. And I never thought that it was possible for me. I didn't know how I was going to look as a woman. I had no way to envision that. It wasn't until like I found like some filters. I was able to
will save your life.
Oh my god, Snapchat filters that look like you've put on makeup but you haven't. Oh my god, those changed everything for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, like there was a lot of times, you know, even a year and a half ago, where I had a friend who this friend has been like an absolute like massive inspiration in how I try to present myself through fashion, and you know, has been a good resource for bouncing a lot of this stuff off. I was like, how do you look so good in your selfies? And she was like, fresh light filter on Snapchat. And I tried it, and it was fantastic.
I didn't know any personally, but like I knew people who knew gender non-conforming people, like friend of a friend type thing. I never really interacted with that person. When I did, it was just kind of like oh, hey, hi, we're both hanging out here at the same time. But I didn't have any other non-conforming friends. It was really interesting because like growing up, my parents weren't against it. Like they didn't like use slurs and things like that around us, but like there was an air
you're
like,
lucky.
There was an air of distaste for it, and like a sort of like they would make fun of people who would cross-dress or people who were trans, or like they would make fun of them. And like I don't even remember where we lived at the time, but I was out like at the grocery store with my dad or something, and we saw someone who was probably a trans woman walking by, and my dad was like, wow, did you see her Adam's apple? Like, she's not hiding well enough. Things like that.
First off, I have met some cis women who have big ol' Adam's apples.
Yes.
And I'm a trans woman, and I do not have a visible Adam's apple.
Yep.
Like, but even when I was a fit muscle mommy and didn't have the neck fat, I did not have an Adam's apple.
Yeah.
Now my current model has one for solidarity. But
let's go back to couples and relationships again. Why did you conceal your cross-dressing from your partner when you first got married?
Because it's social taboo.
I really, when I first got married, I didn't really have any desire. I guess...
We stand a late bloomer. I'm a late bloomer.
At the time I first met my wife, and ever since then, we've been madly in love, and we just enjoy the love part. I mean, just the sharing and the caring.
Yay!
And as a cross-dresser, not really knowing that this is what my destiny was.
She goes on to say, I thought this was something I could lick.
It was something that I thought I was going to be able to eliminate with marriage, with children, with all the ramifications of owning property and working a career and being a breadwinner and so on, the role that I knew I was going to be expected to fulfill.
Because you have a penis, right?
I decided over time this was something I felt I could lick. is something that I could put behind me and out of my life. And obviously, I have not succeeded in that at all.
But then Jody points out that self-acceptance is the real success.
But you really have succeeded.
I have succeeded in many, that's right, in many ways.
And this is why I think maybe Jody's doing okay, and is just, maybe that's just her face. Nancy Ann says it was about the pleasure and enjoyment of being able to transform herself into a woman. I'm just saying.
Occasionally in a movie or something, I might have caught a glimpse of something that had to do with cross-dressing. But that wasn't telling me that there were other people like me out there. That was telling me there were people who did the cross-dressing, but they did it for other motives or other reasons. For me, it was just the pleasure and the enjoyment of being able to transform myself into a woman.
It was adorable when Jody had to realize you can still do man things, like having a job and stuff, even if you're pretty.
You know, you felt like you were supposed to be the breadwinner in the male, and doing this was not in the same mode at all. And it just took a lot of years just to learn to accept it, and that it's not a problem, and you can still be the breadwinner, and you can still do all the things you're supposed to do, and you can even be better at those.
Gender roles are not determined by
you do
whether or not you wear a dress.
It just makes you more sensitive and more of a real person in your everyday life.
Hell yeah, bestie. When we got together, there was no concealment because I didn't know. But after I initially told her that I thought I was a cross-dresser, I had to conceal it. It was something I had to push way down. And I pushed it down so hard that I wasn't even able to admit it to myself.
He met me trans. When we met, I was actually dating a friend of his who was a trans woman. They had already known each other since like elementary school, so she had already told him that she was trans. And then when we started dating, she was like, oh yeah, I have a boyfriend and he's trans too, so fun. When I moved there and started living with her, when he met me, he already knew I was the trans boyfriend. That was really confusing for him later because my husband did not know that he was queer. He wholeheartedly believed in his pure little heart that he was a straight cis man. He really thought that he was. And then he met me, and when we became closer friends, and then when we started to become romantic as well, it was a big gay panic for him. Also a big gay panic for me, because I was like, I don't like men. I had never been attracted to men before. We were each other's gay panic.
How difficult was it for you, the three of you, to integrate the cross-dressing into the rest of your life?
Look, I don't have much to say about this segment, but listen up, bestie. Good life advice. Be gay, date someone your size, double your wardrobe.
She and I shop well together, and she knows already, and she's already looking in the rack at the size that she knows will fit me. So it's a communication.
That's so cute!
My wife and I, we share some of the, for example, the shopping. I think she knows, again, my tastes, and she's helped me. It's another activity that we can do together.
We just smile a lot more together every day, whether I'm dressed or undressed, and it works beautiful now.
Once I started living full-time as a woman, it was rough to integrate that into my everyday life. There were some temporary orders in place to not tell my children, to not present as a woman around my children, even after they knew. It was kind of a mess. But my youngest was 3, and she caught on quick. We were at the store one day, and she said, "Mom, you're a girl now, right?" And I'm like, yes, I am. And she just picked out these really cute short shorts, and she said, "You need these, they're pink." And then she went over to the jewelry section, and she said, "You need a pretty necklace." And the children were probably the most accepting people in my life. It was more difficult getting my gender changed with the military. It was difficult to have to live a double life for a while, but surprisingly enough, most of my co-workers in the military were absolutely fine with it. It was just a matter of paperwork.
A little extra fun thing, Chris, my husband, has somewhat recently, like the last year or so, been exploring other genders because he's gender apathetic. Has absolutely no preference, and that's not something that I had ever heard of before. Like someone who just genuinely has no feelings. Like if you call him she or like they or whatever, he'll still answer and be completely unoffended and just be like, oh, yeah, that's me. As long as he knows that you're talking to him, he'll answer to any pronouns. And has also been exploring more feminine clothes. And we were just on vacation this past week. We just got back today. And I got him a super cute dress, and he really likes it.
See, this is the thing that makes people think it's a social contagion. It's not that, like, we're forcing people or infecting people. It's just like, hey, this joy that this person has is infectious. And some people who maybe would have never considered it, not all people who are with a trans person. I mean, like, look at Bridget. Bridget is not
right
like any kind of trans, and she's been around you and she's dating me, but there's other people where it's like you're with somebody or you're friends with somebody or you're dating somebody or something like that, and you see that joy and it's like, hey, wait a minute.
Right. And
what if me though? And it's like it's okay for them.
I think it's also the introduction of a new perspective, because like the more people that we meet, the more things that we learn, because that's more lives that we haven't seen and experienced. So like for me, I didn't know that I was trans until I was 17, maybe 18 years old. And I think the reason for that is because I had never been shown trans people. Like, I didn't know what I was because I didn't see anyone like me.
I don't want to paint an unrealistic picture that's just too rosy. So what I want to know is what kind of stress is caused by the cross-dressing.
There's a constant fear that coworkers, family, and children will know.
The only stress we probably have right now is that our children don't know, and our business people, and back home nobody has any idea.
Business associates, the family, we don't want them to know.
Over the years up to till we started going out, there was a lot of stress because with having kids, you didn't know, and we didn't know what it was going to end up being or how we were going to be comfortable with it.
There's this interesting note. There's resistance from Jody's wife. I'd want to wear a dress and she didn't want me to. And it's also said it was hard to control.
It just was like constantly, or I'd want to dress and she wouldn't want me to, or we didn't know how to control it.
There seems to be an undercurrent of necessity to remain masculine in portions of life to please their wife.
She wonders whether this is going to become more predominant of our time together later on, especially after our children are off on their own.
My first wife
we're
had
retired
this concern.
and we're situated comfortably. But the concern has been as to where it's going, and she knows there's no concept of transsexualism here because I'm not interested in a sex change. I try to do everything I can to make her feel comfortable with it, and then also give her space. We try to do a number of things that are targeted that are husband and wife.
There's a time that I have to draw the line. I have responsibilities in my male role. And,
we do be living in a society.
That comes first. This is really the
you gotta
fun
have
part,
a dick to be the breadwinner,
you know. Activity, I guess, where I'll have more leisure time, whatever, to do what I'd like to do. But there's still a responsibility.
It's the 90s. This is interesting. I don't understand attraction to men. I don't understand being heterosexual. It's never been a mindset that works for me. So remaining masculine in portions of life to please your wife is a foreign concept that I tried to understand earlier in life and never got the hold of. It just doesn't make sense. And I don't know if that's because I'm a woman and that kind of thing just isn't in the cards for me, or maybe it's because I'm transgender, or maybe it's because I'm gay and gendered roles inherently mean nothing to me in that regard. I don't know. There's a lot of stress for me presenting as a different gender. Going into bathrooms in a world where I could get assaulted in a bathroom just for doing what every human does. It's just, there's so much legislation in place to keep people in their assigned genders at birth that it creates a chilling effect. On a one-on-one basis with people that I know, it creates no stress at all. It's more that I'm afraid of society.
It's very, very rare that it is a stressful thing, and it's very rarely an internal stress. There are sometimes, some days, and I notice this most of the time, mostly when I find myself presenting very femininely. If I do like a full face of makeup and I go out in a dress, and I'm like, something doesn't feel right. And it's like, yeah, I pushed it too hard today. I am not feeling this feminine today. I'm feeling somewhere a little more in the middle, but
Oh.
I'm out and about now. But what else is also very rare is, external stress. So I've only ever been harassed once for using the wrong bathroom. And thank God I'm very, very lucky in that regard. It was more just a disbelief in the sense of like, wow, this is really happening. And then, wow, this person's an idiot kind of thing. Because I was like, cool, you're an employee here. I'm going to your boss right now. Don't shit where you eat.
Sometimes I'm a little concerned about what I wear and where I wear it. Because, like, when I went to the concert, I showed you my outfit. The one with the tight leather pants and
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You remember
That was
the leather
hot.
pants.
That was hot.
So I love that outfit. It was so comfy and like I felt so cute. And I went to work to drop something off for a coworker. I was off that day. And while I was there, like everyone was like, "Oh my God, you look so cute." And I was like, "Thank you." I felt great. And then after that, I went to Taco Bell to grab lunch for myself and my husband. And then my mom asked me to stop by Food Lion and grab something for my brother. I was iffy about going to Taco Bell, but I was like, it's fine. I can place my order online and then run in like 15 minutes and it should either be ready or I just have to stand there for a couple minutes. So I was okay with that. When I got back to the car was when my mom told me that I had to go pick something up for my brother. And I was like, oh, I really don't want to because I don't want to walk around in a city, in a grocery store like this. Because the big thing for me is that no matter what I wear, someone has the potential to be upset about it. And I think that is why I'm so comfortable, is because if somebody wants to be mad about me existing, they're going to find a way to do it. It won't matter
Good
like
point.
what the reason is. Because if I go out and I wear a men's shirt, men's pants, men's shoes, if I cut my hair in a way that men usually wear their hair, if I did all of the man things and someone still sees that I have breasts, like feminine breasts, they're still going to be mad that I exist, that I'm there in their space.
And if you got a surgery and you went to like the beach and took your top off, then they would still be mad, even if you, for all intents and purposes,
have the same chest that that a cis man does.
You probably have smaller tits than a cis man does because okay, I need to tell a story.
Like everything.
I had a friend, he's trans, and we were at this like big pagan event. All the men were going around with no shirt on because it was midsummer, and he's like, "Man, I wish I could take my shirt off." And I'm like, "Do it, just do it, man." And he's like, "Yeah, but booba," and I'm like, "Justin has bigger tits than you," and Justin's just like, "Yeah, dude," and just slaps his titties at us. And he's like, all right, fuck it. And he just takes his shirt off.
If someone's going to be upset with me, like doing all of the conforming things, trying my hardest, and if they can even get an inkling of anything that they don't like, then they're still going to be mean and nasty.
Like cis people are mean and nasty to each other and call each other not real man, not real woman all the time.
If I do all the conforming things and they don't like me, and then I wear what I'm comfortable with and like it's cute, somewhat like feminine or like neutral or just whatever, and they don't like, if I'm not trying to conform, then they'll still be mad. They'll still not like what I'm wearing. It's like, if someone doesn't like that I have a husband, I really have to question, like, what the reason for that is. If I were to ask that person, like, what is the issue that you have with me and my husband? They'll probably say, like, well, I don't think that gay people should be married. And it's like, okay, that same type of person is probably not going to respect my gender identity. So they're not going to see me as a man. they're going to see me as a woman, in which case, why do they have a problem with my marriage? So either they do view me as a man and they just dislike seeing masculine people together, or there's a big issue there with like what are they perceiving and why do they have an issue with it. But like they're just gonna be mad anyway. So I would rather be comfortable when they hate crime me than be uncomfortable in what I'm wearing and how I'm presenting. If I'm gonna get hate crimed either way, I'm gonna be enjoying myself.
Nancy Ann brought up a point when she mentioned about transsexualism and sex reassignment surgery, and there's a lot of interest and discussion and talk and use in the cross-dressing community of female hormones, and I'd like to ask you a little bit about
you
that.
A femboy who uses hormones?
The subject of male cross-dressers taking female hormones. Is that something that you would consider? Is that down the road for you? Cody?
No, for me it's not. For me I'm just against it. It's not going to be for me.
She looks terrified. Their objections to hormone replacement therapy seem to be more of a fear of the unknown.
I don't think people should take medications, especially hormones, without consultation from their physician.
Hormones can be very dangerous without medical supervision. Also, there's...
Who takes hormones without medical supervision?
As far as myself...
It's 1993.
It's really not in my...
Okay, hold up. Pause it. Like, this is 1993, and these are white middle-class men who can definitely afford whatever they need to look absolutely fabulous. Why are they talking about using hormones without medical supervision? Plus a satisfaction with their ability to look feminine enough in their present state. It's interesting. I don't know how to take it.
I think you can have as much fun without doing it.
That's legit.
And as long as you're just doing it for cross-dressing.
You look great, bestie.
If you're transsexual, then you need to do that.
No, they're not in my future. I have no interest in making a change in my body.
It's not like she's in denial because she has done way too much research into that.
To look as much like a woman as I can, but I think I can do that without actually going through a physical change.
Mm-hmm.
So my thoughts of hormone replacement therapy developed before I actually realized I was transgender. I was just reading about cross-dressing. The more you look up about cross-dressing, the more you're going to find little stories people write about hormones. I think everybody should be allowed to look and feel the way that they want to look and feel. I firmly believe that that is an individual's decision. But once I realized that I wanted to be a woman full-time, hormones were definitely a yes for me. I wanted to have different skin texture. I wanted to start growing my own breasts. I wanted the weight distribution. I wanted the whole thing, the whole shebang, the whole kit and caboodle. And for a long time I wanted the surgery as well, but it's expensive and it's probably not in the cards for me, and a lot of it has come down to accepting myself, which on some days I'm very good at.
Growing up, I didn't really know a lot about transitioning because like I didn't really know it was a thing because again like I didn't know anyone who was trans. I didn't grow up with that sort of influence in my life. The only things that I ever heard about it was like my parents making fun of trans people in public and like on TV and things like that, which not a really good spotlight. But when I did crack my egg and figure myself out, I was excited. Like I wanted to learn, like I wanted to find out if I could be comfortable in my body, because that was like the biggest thing, was that I was just so uncomfortable. And I had read a lot about people who did hormones and like started transitioning, and how they said that even though like it wasn't huge changes or anything at first, the smallest thing would make them so happy, and that they continued to be happy with those small changes. And I wanted that.
I love that.
So that was something that I definitely wanted. Things like surgeries, I'm not too excited for, honestly. I have a resistance to anesthesia. I don't know if I have anesthesia awareness, but every time that I've had to have any sort of anesthesia, it does not work well. It still kind of works. Like when I got my birth control implant in my arm, they used a different kind of anesthetic than they usually use, but it was a slower moving one, and it was supposed to just numb my arm. It was supposed to take about 15 minutes to work and then last for about an hour. When they gave me the shot, it did not numb my arm where they gave me the shot, where it was supposed to. It numbed my hand. I had 2 root canals that were done, and they used lidocaine, which I'm completely immune to. Lidocaine just does not work on me. I feel the burn, but it doesn't numb me at all. So I had 2 root canals that I felt completely. And then I also had stitches in my finger. I think it was 6 stitches. And they tried to numb me again with lidocaine, and that did not work. But that's one of the reasons why surgery kind of is not appealing for me, because like I'm going to feel it. Also because like science is not where I want it to be with surgeries right now.
No, like we can do surgery on a grape, but we can't give men a penis. Oh wait, we can if they're a cis man and they were in a tragic accident, but we can't give a trans man a cadaverous penis. Why not? They aren't using them.
Yeah, that and
like remove all the stuff that was there. Put the corpus cavernosum and everything attach all the blood vessels, and I don't know, do the same thing you do for any fucking organ transplant. You know, like you could donate breast material, but you can't donate your breasts for someone else to have breasts.
Yep. It's that, and like there's so many options for trans men. Like you can
I've looked.
Basically just a dildo sewn on. There's one you can have a pump installed so that you can become erect. You can
where you squeeze your balls like a Nike shoe.
That's what I always imagine, but I don't know if that's actually how it works. I hope it is.
No, it is. I used to date a trans man, and so I just became fascinated by the sick fascination, the train wreck it is of looking up the horrifying things that they have come up with that aren't just figure out how to give a trans man an actual penis.
Yep. So there's the Nike ball pump, and there's another one that like you can actually pee through it. There's another one that you can feel. There's one that I've heard of that actually sounds decent, and it's because they use surrounding tissue.
The medioidoplasty, and with where they take all the fatty
the flaps.
The flaps. Give them the flaps.
They take the flaps and they build them up around what you already have.
Yeah.
They can take a vein from your arm. They can take skin from your thigh. And that one I have heard good things about, but it is incredibly expensive and it is not supported by many American doctors. Canada's all over that shit, but the United States is like, no.
Well, you're about to move up north, so maybe you could just drive to Canada.
That's the plan.
Have a medical emergency. Oh no, I need a dick.
Yep. But I don't look too far into surgeries because I do also want to bear children. Like, I want to give birth.
Is that going to be complicated by HRT? I know it messes with a lot of people's periods.
Well, I have not been on T for almost 6 months now, and everything seems fine. Unfortunately, my cycle started right back up the first month that I stopped taking tea. It was a little wonky for the first 2 months, but now it's perfectly it's like it used to be. It's as if I had never taken tea at all. My organs just do. That organ in particular seems to be quite tenacious.
Did you ever feel like you didn't deserve it?
That I didn't deserve my gender assigned at birth?
No, did you ever feel that you didn't deserve transition? Because for reference, you talked about people saying trans people, they knew since they were 5, and you hear that a lot. Yeah. There's the whole idea of the woman trapped inside of a man's body, the man trapped inside of a woman's body. And personally, I felt like I didn't deserve it because here I am realizing that I'm trans at 32, and I didn't have these feelings when I was younger. The closest I had to it was when I was in 7th grade. I thought, it'd be really cool. I had these fantasies about being a trans lesbian, but that was about it. Like, I thought, man, I must be a terrible person because of the society that I grew up in, the way I was socialized. That kind of thing is bad. That kind of thing is naughty. That kind of thing is not something that I could A, afford,
Yeah.
B, ever be accepted for doing. And so I didn't feel like when I was 32, I had a lot of invasive thoughts that told me that I didn't deserve it. Did you ever feel that you didn't deserve it?
I don't think it was ever about deserving or not deserving necessarily. Anytime I questioned whether or not I wanted to start on HRT, it wasn't a question of whether I deserved transition or not so much as doubt about how I would come across. There was a good long part of like trying to come to terms with and understand who I am. I was terrified of the idea of not passing. The idea of passing was very important to me, and as what felt like an inverse to that, if I if I didn't pass, if I did look somewhere in between, if there were aspects of me that looked masculine and aspects of me that looked feminine, then either I was putting myself in danger or I just wouldn't like what I saw, and that it would be
God, that's
very
such a
difficult
mood.
or impossible to go back.
Did your body feel like a ticking clock?
No, I never really had that feeling.
Probably because it happened in your 20s instead of your 30s, but go ahead.
I mean, like, that's the thing as well, is like, I don't have any regret about when I started just because I know how my journey has gone so far. But I still wish I had started sooner than I did in terms of HRT and
I think a lot of us do.
anything else. Absolutely. I look at some of my friends who are 18, 19, who are being like, "Oh my God, it's so late," and I'm just like, "You are you have it so good."
Yeah,
I
like
don't
you're
say it in
growing
those
up in a
terms, 'cause
world
it's like,
where like puberty blockers exist, and so of course,
yeah,
of course, you as an 18-year-old feel like you missed the boat. But like, I
absolutely,
grew up in a
yeah.
world where like nobody was giving teenagers puberty blockers. It was so shunned. It was so
I mean,
inappropriate. It was the thing that, as far as I knew, was only fixable by surgery for a very long time.
yeah, I didn't really know about or understand the concept of hormone replacement therapy until pretty recently before I started trying to pursue it. I didn't know, like, really how it worked or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. Like, again, I saw these people on the news and in media, and I think I must have just assumed that they're built like that, and that is part of how they knew. Not that, there might be a medical reason behind it or a hormonal reason behind it. Now I'm beyond happy about it. I could not be happier with HRT. I could not be happier with exactly where I am and where I'm going.
Mm.
I really like shot night. I like the night that I get to give myself my shot. I try to come up with reasons why I can do my shots more often. Um, I like doing my shots more than I ever liked taking my estrogen supply. There's something very clinical, very medical about it that I really enjoy. It feels more like a medical process to me, and I like that.
Honestly, it was easier for me to keep track of
Yeah.
taking estrogen orally every day because I had a pill minder, and so I would know if I had taken my estrogen.
Yeah.
Taking my estrogen once a week has become a chore for me because it's itchy at the injection site, and if I forget it on Saturday and then
Yeah.
like I'm not thinking about it on Sunday, do I do it on Monday? Do I do it on Tuesday? Do I still inject or do I just wait a week? And like, why am I so depressed and crying? Oh, maybe it's because I forgot to inject and my hormones are off.
Yeah,
It's kind of weird for me, but it's cool to know that you look forward to it.
yeah, so a little bit about that is apparently, and I know you do subcutaneous, I do intramuscular, so the process is a little different, but apparently, like, the half-life of the hormones when you inject is about 4 to 5 days. So it's a rising peak up until that fourth day, and then it kind of drops off.
Mm-hmm.
But depending on exactly what you want, there is like a certain group of people who like do it every 5 days instead of every 7 days.
How do you keep track of that?
Yeah, right. So Wednesday is usually my shot night, but if I forget it and I remember on Thursday, then I might do it Thursday. If it gets to Thursday and I'm like, I'm just not feeling it tonight, I might do it Friday. If I'm a couple days late, I don't worry about it that much. I think the only time I've actually fully missed a week outright was just before this last week because I did it on Monday.
How did you learn about HRT?
I didn't even really see like memes about it. Like I know that's a pretty common thing for a lot of the community these days.
That was me.
Your antihistamines, that kind of stuff.
The titty
I think
Skittles.
a part of it, Titty Skittles, that's a classic as well. A part of it was knowing people who were on HRT, which is again something that I had not been exposed to before, and asking questions, what is this? Where did you get it? How do you go about it? How does it work with your insurance? Just like it was a very one-on-one boots on the ground kind of thing. And I don't think I really started asking a lot of serious questions about it until maybe 6 months before I even started. And like gender affirming surgery is its whole own can of worms, much in the same way of like I'm kind of learning from my experience with HRT of feeling like, well, if I'm happy enough with my situation, then I don't need to try to change anything because what if I make a decision that I would be less happy with? But I kind of do the 1 month plan, the 3 months plan, the 1 year plan of like, think about this thing that you might want to do if it's a long-term decision and think about it every day and come back to it every day. And if after a month or 3 months or a year, you're still feeling like it's something that you want to pursue, then it's probably something that you still want to pursue.
Yo, that's a big deal. That is a huge deal.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, I thought about transition for years before I realized that that was even, like, a thing I could do myself.
Yeah? Before it made sense as an option?
Yeah, and honestly, I haven't thought of it as an official thing so much as, like, just that's been a way that I've operated. Like, hey, am I still big on this a year from now? Am I still big on this a few months from now?
Yeah.
That was how basically it came to me that, like, okay, look, this is still a problem and it's not going away.
Yeah.
Do you feel that being a crossdresser has made you a better person? And more specifically, has it made you a better man when you're in your masculine role?
Interesting question. So, this is pretty rad. They all feel that since coming out, they've become better people. And they seem to be free of what is now called toxic masculinity. I think they call it being macho.
I'm a little more sensitive to my wife's needs, and I think in general, I try and see things from a different point of view, and I think that helps me be a better man.
Well, I feel that I've come to certainly a much better understanding of what women go through in life. I was never a macho individual to begin with, or tried to portray that. But now I've even gained somewhat of a loathing for those who do. I just don't enjoy that because I don't think it's necessary, even though people use it as a protective device. It's like a tremendous burden has been lifted off me because I don't have to spend my time judging other people.
And that's what happens when you let go of gender roles.
I'm a lot more caring of an individual. I'm not so concerned about conquering the world, and just a heck of a lot better father. Just more sensitive to the kids' needs or to anybody's needs, really. And now I can show my emotions as a masculine person.
Right? Just feel your emotions, goddammit. What's interesting is, even in the 90s, we had concepts of toxic masculinity, but we called it male chauvinism. We called it being macho. We didn't call them chads. We called them macho men. We still have these ideas that there's a way to go absolutely overboard with your masculinity, especially if it's fragile, in a way that damages your interpersonal relationships and is misogynistic and old world and generally bad. And people act like this is a new thing. No. calling out toxic masculinity is not a new thing. I definitely feel that being a woman full-time has made me a better person. I'm authentic. I'm me. What you see is what you get. And it's liberating. I don't have to hide anything about myself anymore to people that I care about. It's not really that big of a deal that I was born one gender and now live as another. I feel like living as a woman full-time has made me a better person on the inside and on the outside. I only wish I could have done it sooner.
I think so. I think there's a lot of things that are attributed to toxic masculinity that I think come down to poor mental health. I think they come down to a lot of not listening. And I think when trying to distance yourself from certain aspects of masculinity, deciding what you keep, what you want to discard, what people respond well to, what they don't respond well to, you get to analyze a lot about yourself when you deconstruct your whole sense of self, and you get to pick and choose what to keep. That's been a big part of it, as well as just I like listening to people. There's so much that I wouldn't understand, or I wouldn't be nearly as accepting or understanding without being in the position that I am in. I was out at the Pride Festival in DC today, and I don't know if the kind of person I was before would have been quite so happy to see people being as out and proud as they were, in the sense of like people being gender nonconforming intentionally, people being gender nonconforming unintentionally. There is nothing in the world that is more beautiful to me sometimes than a trans woman with a little bit of like 7 a.m. scruff from not shaving the night before. Like, I personally am a big advocate for body positivity. I very much like that I am fat, and that took me a long time to be happy about.
God, that's rough,
but
isn't
like,
it
is, but it's like it's the kind of thing that like once you learn to accept and love one thing about yourself or about other people, because it works both ways. When it's like, I'm going to love this thing about myself, then you see other people out there in crop tops, flaunting what they have. And it's like, absolutely, you do you. And I could not be happier for it. You are one of the coolest people here because you are that proud of yourself and you are that unapologetic about yourself. One of the things that I put on here when someone at one of the Pride events was asking, what are you celebrating? I said confidence and expression, because being confident to express every aspect of yourself and seeing that confidence and appreciating it has become such a core part of how I put myself out in the world.
I love that. For me, the confidence comes from not being able to find clothes that fit me properly. Like, as soon as I was able to, like, finally dress properly as a fat girl, oh my god,
yeah.
it's so good. It's like, oh yeah, I'll show off the tum because why not? But, like, if I have clothes that do not fit properly and cut into the tum, and if I'm uncomfortable in my skin, I'm not comfortable in public. And one of the things about being trans is like being comfortable in your skin, but like once I gained a lot of weight due to stress and depression and estrogen changing how my body responds to stress,
right,
I didn't know how to dress anymore. It's like I had to learn how to dress twice. And so now I'm like having to find new clothiers, because like when I first transitioned, I was muscle mommy.
Yeah,
I was fit. I was
some of those pictures.
Into it, and I'm no longer that, and it's been hard finding clothes.
Yeah, I was really lucky in that regard.
There's that openness and that honesty which I believe allows me to be kinder, because I know that I'm acting as myself. There's no manipulation about it. I'm not trying to make anybody think or feel anything about me. So I trust more because I actually believe that people like me as me. And I believe that having that trustingness and openness built up, because I was not trusting or open as a child, but I'm very open now. Still not the most trusting, but a lot better than I used to be. But I think that it's given me more confidence, which has given me the space to be kinder to others. Since I'm not so worried about myself and how I'm presenting, I can now consider other people and how they're thinking and feeling and living their lives.
If a friend of yours who was a crossdresser came to you and said, I'm thinking about getting married, and I don't know whether or not I should tell my fiance before the wedding, what kind of advice would you give that person?
So there's this weird thing that goes on when they talk about the fact that your partner deserves to know. Okay, so imagine it's like you have to, they basically say you have to make sure the relationship is strong first.
I think the only thing I would wonder is if they hit a strong enough relationship, because a lot of people meet this month and get married next month, but if it's been a year or two and they've really grown together and they care for each other, then I would say definitely say.
My question would be, how strong is the relationship now?
This is interesting because with my first wife, she was actually like kind of open to me being bi. I think if I had understood these things about myself beforehand and told her before we got married, she would have been fine with it. She was only not cool with it after we joined the cult, which is unpleasant. Let's just say that. Anyway, I'm gonna hit play.
Otherwise, they might be,
or maybe
they may not be as lucky as Jody.
Maybe the relationship should be strong enough to weather that, and you should tell her up front.
There's the risk involved, and I think it's a balancing act. How strong is it now, or how strong may it be in the future? I would hate to generalize.
So the point, though, is that in some cases, it might be better not to say something ahead of time and allow the relationship to grow a little bit and test the waters and see if it got stronger. So that if somebody's out there viewing this video and they're recently married and they haven't told their wife yet, they shouldn't feel so bad.
Right,
Yeah,
that's true.
It's hard enough to make a marriage work without cross-dressing, but you want to make sure it's good and solid. And the cross-dressing, I think, can strengthen it once you do get it involved in it. It definitely adds a lot to life, or our life anyways.
I think it's a call on how strong is the foundation to begin with. Where are you now? And how well do you know your spouse or your intended, and how well do they know you?
I think it takes a lot of years to develop a true relationship. I think definitely my wife and I are stronger now than we were 18 or 20 years ago. I think it's easier for her to cope with it now because what we built together over the 18 years.
But that person could be in love with an idea of you. They could be in love with the front that you put up because you're not being completely honest about who you are. They talk about it taking years for a relationship to be strong enough to handle it. And I feel like years is too long to hide who you are. And I don't know. Maybe I'm a product of a different generation. Maybe I'm a product of a different culture. But the idea that it would take years to know if you could trust somebody is absolutely wild to me. I think it would take only days to weeks to months to know if I could trust somebody enough to tell them who I really am. Joanne asks them, wouldn't it be worth it to tell them earlier as a test of whether or not the relationship was actually strong? And only Nancy Ann seems to believe that it would have been better to tell ahead of time.
Don't you think that an early discussion is a test of the strength of that relationship? Mm-hmm. And if it isn't strong enough, wouldn't the crossdresser be better off not getting married?
I would advise that person to try to set the stage to tell her about it ahead of time. I think he's going to have to take that risk because I think she deserves to know. She loves me and cares about me, and if his fiancé feels the same way, I think together they'll find a way to work it out. You've suggested it's sort of like a judgment call as to whether or not the relationship is strong enough, and as you said, maybe they are better off not entering that kind of a relationship or entering it that soon. It might put things off a little bit until they got to know each other better.
Seriously, if she can't handle it, she ain't for you, babe.
It would be better to do that. I've seen too many people who, after they found out, and shortly after the marriage, it's been misery for both.
I wish that I would have done it, but it took 2 years, and she found out accidentally, but it's taken us a lot of years to grow that probably we could have grown through if we were open in the beginning.
I wouldn't get into that relationship if I didn't feel like I could tell them. I say live your life the way you want to live it, do your own thing, be your own person, and if people can't handle that, then they don't deserve you.
If you're in any sort of relationship where you don't feel safe being yourself, then you should not be in that relationship. It, to me, doesn't really matter if it's family or if it's a friend that you've had forever or if it's a partner that you really, really love. Because if they're going to change how they feel about you based on you being yourself, then they don't love you. And you deserve to be loved as yourself, not as who they idealize you, as who they want you to be, how they present your own image to you. You deserve to live your own image and to be loved as that image, as yourself.
Talk to the partner, talk to them. Honest, open communication is almost always the answer to any interpersonal problem. I would tell this, my friend, if you're unsure how your partner is going to react, the only way that you're going to really know for sure is to talk to them and to ask them. And if they react poorly, fuck them, leave them.
Yeah.
You have to be your number one priority at the end of the day. And this partner has the opportunity to accept that and accept that the you that they're going to know is going to be so much better, so much happier than the one that they know now. And if they aren't willing to accept that, if they're not interested in accepting that, they have a perfect opportunity to stop making them a barrier to your own happiness. That's all there is to it. Talk to them
you
about
gotta
it.
put your own oxygen mask on before you put on somebody else's.
Exactly. There are a lot of things in this world that you can put other people first for. You can convince yourself that there's even more things that you can put other people first for. You can't put other people first for this kind of thing. Obviously, there's different situations in which, like, you mentioned your kids earlier, where it did make things more complicated, but you still have to do it for yourself first and foremost. That's the only way you're going to be happy. And if your partner's one of the good ones, then they are going to be there to see it, and they're going to be happy to see it. And if they're not one of the good ones, then you don't want them in your life.
It's so true. And honestly, like, if your kids have not been blackpilled by the only reason the kids are ever bigoted is if they're blackpilled by their parents or their friends.
Yeah.
That's the only reason you will ever find a bigoted child.
Yeah.
The kids will actually understand more than the adults will.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The kids are all right. The kids are going to be okay.
The kids are all right.
It makes me so happy to see young people being as accepting and as open as they are now, because from the outside looking in, it seems to be the norm now. It doesn't seem to be the kind of thing that people are made fun of anymore. Whether it's gender or sexuality, it seems like it's just accepted for the kids. It's so cool. People are going to have so many more opportunities than they ever would have before. And, like,
I think
it's going to... Oh, yeah. It's going to give people the opportunity to experiment more if that's something that they feel comfortable and safe doing. They've already got the building blocks of a community that basically didn't exist before. I remember when I was in high school talking with a couple friends, and one of them was saying something like, oh my god, all these different people seem to be coming out as bisexual, like talking about people in our class. All these people are bi. And I said, I think I might be bi. And people gave me the side eye and weird looks from one of these people who had just said that they themselves were bisexual. I was like, okay, that one's going back in the vault. I'm not going to discuss that because there was no reception for it. I remember one of the first people that I was ever I thought I fucking hated this guy. I thought I could not stand this guy. He was an out and proud gay kid in middle school. And that was never part of it, that it was because he was gay or anything like that. I only found out much later that he was actually bisexual. But I look back now and I was like, I was crushing so hard on him and didn't understand. And I just didn't get it.
And you translated that crush into hate? Because society?
It's why do I need to be around him so much? Why am I so interested in this person?
Your anime rivals.
Basically.
Secretly
I must surpass
him. Char and Amuro.
Gosh, yeah.
Are they gay or do they just really hate each other? Yes.
Exactly.
The answer is yes.
Exactly.
Are you a crossdresser who wants to indulge in your feminine side, but find it difficult to stay slim and trim? Then you need Onion Belly Cal-ory Mints. Just suck on 1 or 2 of these delicious mints before a meal, and suddenly salad will taste like a thick, creamy Alfredo. Those carrot sticks? A cheesy avalanche of nachos. With our patented femme flavor technology, Cal-ory Mints make everything you eat taste rich, savory, and up to 500 calories more indulgent per bite. So go ahead and treat yourself, girlfriend. Order your supply of Onion Belly Cal-ory Mints today for just $19.99 by calling the number on your screen. Operators are standing by to help you taste the feminine side of life. One of the most difficult aspects of the cross-dressing experience can be navigating feelings with a spouse or partner. In this segment, we'll hear perspectives from the wives and partners of cross-dressers and other gender non-conforming individuals. They'll share their initial reactions to learning about their loved one's feminine or masculine desires. We'll explore the challenges, but also the compassion and understanding that can come from an open dialogue. Though it may be a heavy adjustment, these partners show there are ways to create acceptance for your cross-dressing partner's needs, all while maintaining the committed relationship.
In the next segment, we're going to talk to your partners. I want to thank you all for joining us.
There's another segment.
We'll see you later on in the video.
Sounds good.
So how about, I had no idea there was going to be a second segment, let alone a third. I didn't realize that this was going to be an hour-and-a-half video. I was pleasantly surprised.
Did you know anything at all about cross-dressing?
All of their spouses didn't know anything about cross-dressing at all.
No, I didn't know anything. So he explained things to me.
I didn't know anything about cross-dressing. Nothing. She basically just taught me.
Sure! Wait. Excuse me.
I did go to the
Hold
library.
on. Did she call her wife she?
I didn't know anything about cross-dressing. Nothing. She basically just taught me.
I knew absolutely nothing about cross-dressing. I did go to the library.
We stay in a good library here, but they all also listen to their partners, which is awesome.
And then it was a lot of time with Nancy talking to me.
I just wanted him to talk to me about it.
From there, it was support because I truly loved my husband, and I knew it was never going to be leaving him. It was going to be my getting educated, and we were going to communicate and be able to work this out like we have anything else.
Honestly, I think she knew before I did. There were signs. Looking back, I can see why the conversations would go that way. She would say things like, if we were to separate, I think you would be gone for good. It's like she could read my mind. I had these weird little thoughts in my head that said, fall off of the map and reappear on the map as somebody else. And nobody would ever have to know. I got back in touch with someone who used to be one of her good friends. He's gay, and when we found Jesus, he ended up not being her friend anymore. I reached out to him and told him I was sorry if I ever made him feel uncomfortable, but this is who I really am. And he said, girl, we knew. And I'm like, what do you mean? He says, she knew. I knew. We talked about it. Way back when you first said something about it, even before that, when you were both talking just about maybe not having gendered roles in your relationship, I knew. And I told her. It was really interesting. It's almost like people close to me kept it from me, kept me in my egg. Hi!
Okay. Hi. My name is Chris, or Christopher, if you prefer.
What do you prefer?
Either one. I usually go by Chris.
You want to tell us a little about yourself or not? It's cool if you don't want to.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I already knew him, like, as he was. So I already knew him as, like, a transgender person. But before that, the person he was dating at the time, had told me they were transgender, and that was like the first time I ever really like heard that. So I had to like kind of figure out what it was and like learn how to like process it. Not that I was like against it or anything, obviously. It was like a new thing. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that was, I didn't know it was in like the relevant like sphere of information when it came to that sort of thing. But also I knew about like cross-dressing, obviously, like from drag queens and stuff. But I wasn't super exposed to all of it before I met Eric. So it was kind of like, it was a lot to learn in like a small amount of time. But I'd say I'm pretty well versed in it now, I would hope.
Yeah.
So what was your initial reaction?
My initial reaction,
God, their
surprisingly
outfits are
enough, was relief, because
I want to dress like
Nancy
that.
had told me that she wanted to talk to me about something very special, and I thought I was competing with another woman.
Why don't they just make gigantic sweaters to wear over leggings and huge chunky necklaces anymore? I would have so many of them. I would wear them year-round.
My first reaction was very mixed. I found her clothes in the trunk of her car. I went to look for a Frisbee and I found stockings. So at first, like Sandy, I was relieved because I just figured they were another woman's clothes.
I had mixed emotions. The fact that Babs did tell me without my finding out sneakily helped a great deal, and we talked an awful lot.
And then we get to the big question.
I could put my foot down and say, well, why are you doing this? Are you gay?
That's what I thought too at first. First of all, I thought that she was gay.
Yeah.
You know, I figured that must be the reason. You know.
What are you, gay?
What are you, gay? Yeah.
I mean, no.
I really didn't. Nancy said that she was not gay, and I believe that.
Also, Sandy's hair is fantastic. It's so big and beautiful.
And once she explained to me that she's not gay, she just feels like a different person.
As soon as she told me she wasn't, I believed her, but it's not true.
In your cases, it's not true.
It's not true.
There are gay cross-dressers.
Oh,
These
yeah.
are amazing women.
Right.
It also helped that Babs wanted to stay with me, cross-dressing, rather than go to a guy. And it became a security. It really did. It was
That's
like,
so
I'm not losing
cute!
him. He's just becoming Babs.
It's so interesting. It's like you're dressing as a woman. This is a threat to our relationship, and my entire world is about to go away because my partner is a different gender, or at least my partner is presenting as a different gender. Rah, the shadow is bigger than the actual threat. None of that was happening. Their partners weren't leaving. Their partners aren't into men. They just like being pretty. They were just becoming someone different, someone better, someone real. And it was really interesting when they pointed out that they think their partners are more secure and loyal to them because basically they created a safe space for their partners to exist in. They put it as having the best of both worlds, which, I don't know.
Most of the cross-dressers are the most faithful to their wives.
Why do you think that is?
I think part of it would be if in fact the wife is supporting, they're in a very nice world. They have the best of both worlds.
It almost sounds like they feel like they're giving their husbands, I don't know, it just sounds over the top. The best of both worlds is not the way I would put it. I would say you get to be yourself, and in a loving relationship, that doesn't have to be two worlds. It's just being in a loving relationship.
All her stresses are gone, and she feels better. And
they all agree that it brought them all closer together.
So do you think that it ends up bringing you closer together?
Oh, yes.
Definitely.
I didn't really think too much on it. I was just like, oh, if we're talking about like Eric coming out to me, technically he didn't, but like my reaction to it wasn't, I didn't really have one, if that makes sense, because like I already knew. I wasn't like shocked by it or anything. I was just like, I don't know, but I didn't feel like too largely about it, I guess.
And I think that we were talking about this before. One of the things is getting past the point of asking why it's happening.
So
nobody
why is
understands.
Not that important?
No, it is happening. It's a reality. It's there.
We get Jodie's wife, Shar. And Shar is also hard to read. She looks like she hates everything about it, but she says the sweetest things, and they sound super heartfelt. So, I don't know. She sounds great. And it might just be her face. I really don't want to judge her.
A very happy, normal life, and I think the three of us do.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we do.
Yeah, it has, because like I would like to see people being happy, you know, being like their true self, as it were. It kind of sucks that, you know, everyone gets kind of weird about it all the time. But yeah, the why is pretty important to me, because in my experience, people usually do it because they want to be themselves for once, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really see an issue with that, obviously.
Did any of you at any time ever feel like he was cross-dressing because there was something lacking in you, that somehow this was your fault? We hear that a lot from wives.
It's interesting when they talk about it not being their fault. It seems to have at first raised some insecurities.
I wondered, you know, if I had something to do with it, but I didn't really think it was my fault.
I'm not a real fancy person. I don't like the real frills. And if this is the type of woman that you're personifying, why would you pick a woman to live with that was not? And I guess there was some self-doubt.
Carol is the only one that is immensely secure in her relationship. What an awesome and supportive spouse. She doesn't have any problems with it at all.
Did you ever feel that there was something lacking that
No,
drove?
we had a good relationship before, and it has since become better. There's more understanding of her. Where she would do things and I wouldn't understand why she was doing them. Now I understand.
You get a special bond.
Definitely. It is
real special.
I don't think my wife ever thought that it was her fault, but my birth mother thought that it was somebody's fault. She asked me if anybody abused me growing up. I wanted to say, I mean, yeah, duh, you did. But I wasn't going to give her credit for who I am today. I'm who I am in spite of her. She didn't do anything that made me want to be a woman, if that makes any sense. I don't think you can abuse somebody into being transgender or gay. I think you just abuse people into being scared and submissive and broken. And being a crossdresser, being a transgender person, being a gay person, it doesn't mean you're broken. It just means that you're more likely to have been broken by people who don't understand you. So let me reword that. Did you ever feel like it was somebody's fault? Like, someone did something to this person, therefore they are trans?
No, I never really felt that way. I just thought that this person, in which case it's Eric, but I just thought they, you know, had just like a normal like way to process it, just being like, oh, I'm stuck in the wrong body. I'm actually, you know, more like this in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I feel, like, you know. So I never really thought it was anyone's fault. I was just like, that's just the thing that happens.
Yeah, fair. That is often the stereotype, and it's not wrong. It's not a wrong stereotype, but the person trapped in another person's body. I never felt trapped until after I hatched, really. For me, it was like, man, if I had boobs, though.
I've also pondered that question, but for myself.
I mean, fair.
That's just because I like boobs. But
I mean,
do you have trouble with pronouns? She, he, him, her.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Just listen to this and you...
Here we are talking about pronouns in 1993.
Did you have difficulty learning to say her, she, versus he, him, whatever? You know what I mean?
Yes, at times I still do.
A pronoun is a basic part of the English language and is a word that can function by itself in reference to something else. Words like it, them, his, she, and you are examples of pronouns. You probably use them without even thinking about it. The general consensus on pronouns is they're difficult because they're changing back and forth so much. At one point, she says it's not permanent change and that's why it's hard.
You catch it because you're still dealing with the whole person.
Right. When we're going away for a weekend, I sit in the car as we're driving and I go, call her Babs, just call her Babs. Babs, she's only Babs this weekend, Babs. And you have to really remember that.
And then on the way home, it's say, call her Bob, call him, call her.
It's adorable how they practice their pronouns. When somebody tells me their new pronouns, I'll actually put their pronouns in my phone contact. That way I always see it. That way I'm less likely to mess up. Practicing is part of being a supportive friend or partner.
If it happened every day, it would be part of the routine. But since it doesn't happen every day, you have to really think before you speak. And it's no strain. It really isn't. It becomes fun.
No. And it's not permanent change. That's why it's hard.
Right.
I'm going to ask you a difficult question.
Oh my God. See that? Living a double life, that's what's hard. But if it was a permanent change, they would have gotten used to it. Just why be transphobic when you could be an amazing wife? What the fuck? These are amazing people. Oh no, I hit eject. Hold on. I got this. As far as I know, she still refers to me by my old name and as a man everywhere she goes. That's really gross. You know, there are people who say, oh, you'll confuse the kids if you tell them you're a woman. No, what's more confusing is living as a woman and everyone around knows I'm a woman, refers to me as a woman, except for this one person who insists that I'm still a man. I think that's more confusing. Also, it's just willfully ignorant.
On occasion, but never for Eric, usually, because I knew him, like, immediately as who he was. Mm-hmm. So his pronouns were already, like, set in stone, and I never really, had the time to, like, get used to calling him anything else. But for some people that I know, I tend to slip up sometimes, and I feel horrible about it. And I always immediately, like, correct myself, obviously. But yeah, sometimes it's just like a slip of the tongue, and I never really mean any, like, harm by it, obviously.
It can be common if you knew somebody as a previous gender.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a common thing that happens. The problem comes with not correcting it once you know.
Right.
Yeah. Or flat out refusing, or just assuming, because everybody assumes gender. Let's be real. Everybody assumes gender. Like, you see a hot babe walking down the street, you're going to assume she's a hot babe. You know what I mean? Right. And like, if you find out, like, hey, that hot babe is a dude, it's like, hot? Okay, well, he's hot. Whatever. And it's like, it's not bad to have assumed. Mm-hmm. It's bad to be like, oh no, she. And it's like, no, right. I just told you. I just told you that he identifies as a guy, even if he is a hot babe. But it's like, why not just have a conversation? Why not just believe people when they tell you? And so it's okay to slip up. You just fix it and move on.
It's not that I think of the person as the pronoun that I'm using. It's just like, sometimes it just comes out.
Yeah. I have a friend who I've known since 4th grade, and like, we're both trans. And there are times where even in my head, like, if I'm thinking about when we knew each other, my head does the wrong pronouns, and I'm like, bitch, she's a woman. She's been a woman longer than you, and it's like, it's just, it's a mess, but shit happens.
I gave you a pill, and I told you that this pill would positively, absolutely stop your partner's cross-dressing and all of the feelings that go with that, would you give your partner that pill? Cindy.
Here they all refuse the pill. But again, is Char smiling? Is she disgusted by the idea? What's she thinking? What is this face? I don't know. They all seem to believe that presenting femme makes their partner an entire person.
The times that I would say no are becoming more and more. I love things the way they are. I'm having a great time.
Sure.
No, I wouldn't.
Why not?
It's because we're having so much fun. We've met so many great people. It's opened up a whole new world for us. I think another reason I went is it just has brought us so much closer together. And Jody's getting to be who she really is and who she really wants to be.
Being genuine brings you closer together.
That opportunity to be who they really are. So,
definitely not.
Why am I not surprised?
Well, no, she really, it makes her a whole person. And if that's the whole person, I love this person. Regardless, if that's what makes it a whole person, let it be that way. There's no...
I think the other thing that you have to say is it makes us all whole people too. Because we can give our all to our mates.
Good point.
right. Yeah, that is a good point.
Thank you.
I'll give you a check.
Okay.
I think when I first came out, if somebody told her that you could give me a pill and I would go back to being a man, I would never know, she would have given it to me. I don't think she would have slipped it to me. I think she would have gotten people in the church to convince me to take it. I wholeheartedly believe that. Whether or not she still feels that way now, I don't think she cares, but at the time. Yeah, here's a problematic question from 1993. If I could give you a pill and say, give this to your partner, and they'll just go back to being a normal cisgender person again, what would you say?
Ugh. Mostly ugh. But,
bruh.
I mean, if I knew the other person would be happier doing that, I might consider it. But like, I would never change who someone is just to benefit either them or me, I guess, is kind of like the goal of that question. But yeah, like Eric especially, like I wouldn't. I'm happy and I'm happy with him in any and all forms he would ever take, and as long as he's happy with who he is, then I'm happy. So I wouldn't want to change that.
It's often compared to things like drug addiction or alcohol addiction, in the sense that there is a burden, a stigma. There's a social stigma attached to it, and there is a burden of secrecy that goes along with the stigma. Can you give me any kind of sense of what it's like to have to keep a secret like that? Is that stressful, or have you found that you can deal with that?
So they say it's a good secret, and I don't know. It seems like they're having fun keeping it a secret, but on the other hand, the way that they talk, it seems like the crossdressers wish it was a full-time thing that they got to do. And their kids are middle school and college age.
Yes, there's stress. I mean, it's hard keeping it from the kids, keeping it from the family.
It's a good secret. There is a lot of stress in it.
Listen, that's something I tell my kids all the time, okay? The only time it's okay to keep a secret is if it's a fun secret. Or a good secret. A secret that makes people happy. Like a birthday present or something like that. It sucks that society keeps them closeted crossdressers. But, like, for real, though, the problem comes in when, like, your kids find out when they're 18 that dad's been like this for 18 years. And then it's like, you could have let your kids in on the fun secret. And if, for them, it's just a private thing that they do... just them? Kids don't need to know. Honestly, no one that they don't want to know needs to know. It's not like they find it to be something shameful. It's just more like something that society doesn't want them to know. I think their kids can handle it. Like, if mom and dad can handle it, then their kids can handle it. But it's 1993. So I'm going to give them some grace on that.
Carol said it's mainly to deal with, like, the children. You know, you're just always afraid that the children are going to find out. Our children don't know. I don't feel they need to know.
What they think of the children?
That's the stress part of it for me, because making sure that they don't find out.
The stress is trying to keep it from the kids.
They do, however, concede that society is the reason that they don't tell their kids. It is 1993. They aren't keeping it a secret because it's inherently bad to present as a different gender, which it's not. They're keeping it a secret because they don't want their kids to have to deal with the societal ramifications of it, and I guess I can get that.
You really don't want to put them in the position of having to keep the secret too.
The stress is coming not from the fact that your partners are cross-dressers. It's not self-destructive behavior.
Absolutely
The
not.
stress is because society at large doesn't understand.
That's
and
right.
So
Definitely.
you don't want children, family
Definitely.
members to have to deal with that burden.
Right.
Yes.
Yes!
I'm getting that right?
Yes.
Yep.
I've been on the other side of it, where it's like, you have to keep this from the children because the knowledge of this will hurt them, and it won't.
If there were a time when I'd have to tell the world, I don't think I would be worried about it if I had to.
Sometimes, personally, I have to keep my birth identity a secret just to keep myself safe. But before I hatched, the stress was unbearable. I was depressed, I was anxious, I didn't even know why.
Well, what's funny is I've been told that I'm straight passing, like, by a lot of people.
Passing is a term used by various members of the queer community to refer to how they are perceived by society. For cross-dressing and transgender individuals, if you are perceived as the gender you are attempting to be seen as, you pass as that gender.
So I almost feel like I don't really need to like hide anything. But I also don't feel the need to like talk about it all the time. So people just kind of assume, for me anyway, that I'm just a dude who likes women. But when I'm like out in public, like with Eric and stuff, if we're in what feels like a not like super safe environment, I'll kind of just we kind of try not to make it so obvious, you know. It is a little bit obvious if you know us well enough. It can be stressful sometimes when we're not like in the right environment, I suppose. But again, like I've been told I'm straight passing, so it's like it's not hard for me, I guess, to kind of keep that secret if it needs to be kept anyway. And it might be harder for Eric, just considering, you know.
Do you feel like you have to keep it a secret on his behalf sometimes?
I don't think I've had to actually do that, but I would if it was necessary.
If I asked you what kind of advice would you have for a wife who has just learned that her husband is a crossdresser, what kind of resources can you point her to? What would you tell her?
I love how the consistent main emphasis on this entire thing, on how to cope with cross-dressing, is to communicate with your partner.
First of all, to really talk to him. To really
You are
find
each
out
other's
if he knows
best
why.
resource.
I think that's the biggest thing, is just talking. You have to talk. You have to talk together.
It's fun that Carol suggests not only finding educational media, but also just fun media. Basically suggesting to look for positive representation as a way to explore and have conversation. It's honestly incredibly good advice, considering so many of us as humans can find things we resonate with in fiction and learn more from that about ourselves than we could in a textbook. She also says that really the partner has no excuse to not be accepting on grounds of ignorance. Carol is my hero.
Look for resources for magazines. There are TV shows. There are movies, books. There's so much about cross-dressers that they can learn. There's no reason why a wife has to say,
Aww.
well, I don't understand this, so I don't want this.
Right,
If
there's
they
no
have
reason.
communication, If they can talk, if they love each other,
Right.
it makes so much difference.
The others suggested that meeting with other people in your same situation is important as well. Finding community is often better than representation because you can meet others who can reassure you that you are, in fact, not crazy. Like, if you can't find other people like you, representation gives you people to look up to or people to learn vicariously from. But what really is going to solidify it is boots on the ground, actual people who are in the same situation as you that you can interact with.
The other thing is getting into groups and getting out and meeting other people. That helped us a lot, you know.
That's why visibility is important. That's why pride is important.
You and Nancy are actually involved with a very...
See, they talked about this. They said there's movies, there's TV shows, there's books. Visibility is important because visibility tells you, A, you're not alone, and 2, here are some friends you can have. Like, you aren't crazy. Visibility is so important.
Organized support group.
Right.
Sorry, I keep stopping.
We have a couple of wives, myself and one other, that meet on a one-to-one basis with any wives that want to come and talk to us as people that are willing to listen and say, hey, what you're feeling is fine. You're not abnormal, but we advocate that they read your book.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think it's the best book out on the market, and I think it gives them a point of communication and a point of talking.
We should read the book.
It gives them that framework that you need, because the wife really, for the most part, has no idea what kind of questions to even ask at the beginning.
So, people have actually come to me and said, hey, my partner is transgender. Hey, my partner is non-binary. My partner is bisexual. What do I do? There's actually a lot of cisgender heterosexual people who come to me and ask me what to do. Or they'll ask on behalf of a friend who said, do you know what to do? And they said, I have a friend who does know what to do. And so it's like a friend of a friend will reach out to me. And the advice I always give is read about it. Please don't make your spouse be the sole source of education for you. Not because they aren't reliable, but just because it's stressful to have to explain yourself constantly. To explain your own existence, to justify your own existence to people. There's nothing more validating than to have a person who's close to you understand. So, yes, listen to your partner. But if there's something that is confusing or nagging at you, you can also go to the library, go on the World Wide Web, watch videos, talk to other people, and never try to shove them back inside that shell. You can't uncrack an egg. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't do it. What makes you think you can?
I think I would just tell them to like be very open and understanding, obviously, because like you need to be just for that, because you don't want to like ruin what you already have with that person. At least I wouldn't.
So I have a follow-up question for you. Eric mentioned that before him, you didn't realize that you were some kind of gay.
Oh yeah, I was a real silly straight person back in the day.
So
quote unquote.
There are there are a lot of partners who will say, "But I'm not gay," or if they're in a gay relationship and their partner transitions, they'll be like, "But I'm not straight. Like I'm just flat out not into that. Like it's not that I don't love this person. I just am not that sexuality at all. Like not even attracted to masculinity at all." What would you say?
I mean, sometimes it is what it is. Because for me, as long as the other person that's like, you know, exploring themselves is happy, I'm happy. Being like pansexual and all, I'm not really attracted to like a specific gender or like sexual orientation or anything. I'm just here for people. And also for the person like feeling weird about their partner, I'd probably just, again, tell them to be like open-minded and understanding towards their partner. And maybe like if you really can't deal with it, just like tell them how you feel see if you can either work things out or like maybe just do what's best for both of you and just kind of go your separate ways, especially if it's like super like problematic for the person being weird about it or not feeling comfortable in that situation. For me, it's not like a gender thing. Like I said before, I'm pansexual, so like I'm just here for personalities mainly. Like if I like you, I like you, and if I don't, then I don't. So it doesn't really matter what form you take or what people you tend to like, as long as our personalities vibe. Like I could easily be in a relationship with someone, I think, and obviously if I find them, like physically attractive.
How does sex fit into the cross-dressing role in the relationship? Is that a part of it? If it is, how do you feel about it? If it isn't, how do you feel about that?
What's interesting is no matter how accepting they are, though, they insist that they're heterosexual, but when they have sex, it's with the husband. I'm not sure how I feel about their language.
I don't go to bed with Babs. She sleeps with me.
But there's no sex, no sexual contact.
Not with Babs.
With Babs.
No, because I say to myself, I'm not a lesbian. When Babs becomes her other self, she's more than welcome. And we have a good life.
She's still the same person. He's still my husband. I need a husband, and I want a husband, and that's what I have. I'm not a lesbian either. I think at first that thought crosses your mind.
Yes.
But he's still him. He's still my husband.
It's just close.
It's close.
It's two separate things, but our love making is much more intense over the last 3 years. But as strictly man and woman, when Nancy comes to bed, we sleep in the same bed, but we are not together in the sense of sexual behavior.
I have to say, sex is kind of weird sometimes for me. I've kind of stopped doing it. That has more to do with what people have done to me in the past than it does with how my body is and how my partner's body is. I really don't care what parts you have down there. We can do it. And it'll be hot. And it'll be fun. But a lot of times I'm just not up for it due to other reasons related to trauma.
I mean, honestly, it feels pretty normal to me. Our parts fit, so it's never really been that awkward, except for like, the awkward stage when you first start, having sex with someone. Especially for me, because that was actually Eric was actually my first time, and I've only been with one other person since. With him, it was like a threesome kind of thing.
Hot.
But right. We've never really had like any complications doing anything. In fact, we've been exploring new things kind of recently. So if anything, I'd call it more interesting than like anything else, even though it's normal, I guess, in the societal like norm, I suppose.
When you're out together, though, do you ever feel uncomfortable appearing in what seems to be a lesbian relationship? Does that bother you at all?
No, I go out with my friend.
None of them were worried about being perceived as being lesbians, which might speak to either the general societal invisibility of lesbians or a lack of PDA in their relationships when their partner is dressed, but they don't elaborate either way.
Oh, I love
That's
to go
my friend now.
with her.
And my best friend.
Exactly.
And it's wonderful to have both your husband
cute.
And your best friend and your lover all in one.
All the time.
All the time.
All the time.
I can share anything.
I think she was terrified of being perceived as a gay couple. I don't think that was even a possibility for her. I remember her saying to me, "I'm not a lesbian." And I'm like, you don't have to be. Like, I'm a lesbian, but if you're not, we don't have to be together. And that can be okay.
Not really. No. I've always felt pretty comfy. Even though, like, I catch some people, like, giving us weird looks or whatever. It's just like, I don't know. I just shrug it off. It doesn't, like, it bothers me, obviously, but it's not like, it's whatever. As long as people aren't, like, directly harming me or him, they can think what they want,
Well, thank you very much. And what we're going to do now...
Look at these women abolishing gender.
Both of you, your partners and you together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking to reduce unsightly outlines? Introducing Tuckerbuddy by Onion Belly, the discreet personal profile enhancer. Tuckerbuddy provides a seamless, natural-looking shape so you can feel confident and tidy in any outfit. No lines or irregularities peeking through. Just a smooth, sleek silhouette. Whether you want a more streamlined look or need some concealed contouring, Tuckerbuddy is the discreet solution. Enhance your personal profile with Onion Belly's Tuckerbuddy. Also look for Bulge Buddy for men's pants.
Now it's time to synergize the experience. Real-life cross-dressing couples who have found a way to make this aspect work within their marriages and families. You'll get a candid look at the compromises and coping mechanisms they've established. We'll hear about setting boundaries, open communication, and how these couples share the delicate balancing act of fulfilling one partner's cross-dressing lifestyle while still upholding traditional spousal roles and responsibilities to children. It's an ongoing journey, but one that's possible with the right foundation of trust, discretion, and taking it one day at a time.
What's the single biggest issue that still remains in your relationship that relates to your partner being a cross-dresser?
They cited the biggest issue in their relationship now is waiting for her spouse to get dressed.
The time it takes her to get dressed.
Why is that an issue?
Because I've always been on time all my life, and waiting for her, it's a matter
Listen, there's
of
a learning
my not
curve.
being on
She didn't grow up with
time.
it. As a trans woman, I have to admit that getting ready can take twice as long as a cis woman or cis man, because if I want to look presentable, I have to have an immaculate shave, and I have to put on at least some makeup, or I look like a space alien, as seen here.
But aside from that, there's nothing wrong with her.
Shar and Jody are worried that the children would find out. A lot of them seem consistently worried.
My biggest thing is if the children would find out. Right now,
Yeah,
is
they
if
just
the
don't
children
need to know.
Jody says it would be fun if they did know. They'd get to know each other easily, but then immediately backpedals, calling the revelation trauma.
It would be fun if they did know, because I think we'd all get along great, but I don't know if the trauma would be worth the happiness afterwards or the experience.
Shar continues with that completely unreadable face, and Jody continues to look anxious as hell. Like, is that just their faces? It's so hard to read. Jody, darling, blink twice if you're in a controlling relationship.
The biggest issue is from me, and that's wondering...
It's not traumatizing for a kid to find out that your parent dresses a different kind of way. I told my 6-year-old kid, hey, I'm going to be wearing women's clothes, and people are going to be calling me and they're going to be calling me she instead of him. But you know what doesn't change? And they said, your love for me? And I'm like, bingo, kiddo. Their only question was, what do we tell my little sister? Because her sister was 3. That's it. Sandy expresses a concern of once the kids grow, will that crack Nancy's egg?
How far Nancy will want to go, how often, is it going to be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? And will I still have my husband?
Honestly, if she's worried about it, I'd say she's picking up on subtle clues, like when my first wife expressed fear that if we separated, I'd never return. And, I mean, of course not. I would go disappear to be a woman. I would say that, at first, it had a negative effect on my romantic relationship. I mean, that relationship ended the day I hatched. Ever since then, I've just been living as a lesbian, and my partners are fine with that, so it hasn't created any issues since. So, Eric, oh my god, you did get a haircut.
No, it grew in.
No. Oh my god. And you shaved your beard.
I did shave.
Okay.
I still have a little bit, but I shaved.
It's fun. We get to have the before and after in the video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say safety out in public. A lot of times I feel unsafe presenting as myself out in public. It helps to have Chris with me, but I can't always have Chris with me, so sometimes I'm just out in public feeling unsafe.
I don't usually get that, but like I said earlier, I've been told I'm straight passing. I don't see it, but it happens.
Overall, in your relationship, has your partner's cross-dressing had a positive effect, or has it had a negative effect on the relationship?
They all express that it's made their lives better, that communication is better, more open, truthful with each other.
I think it's been a positive impact. We've always been able to communicate, but we can communicate even better now because we truly understand each other and know the total
She's
person.
got nothing to hide.
Once that was out, there were no other secrets. We were far more open with each other. We talk a lot more now than ever before. We, don't so much give in to each other as just accept what the other has to say.
Definitely positive. There's no question. We're a lot more open with each other now.
We're just real.
We're real. Yeah, that's the bottom line. We're just real.
It's real.
She's a great friend.
That's just how it is.
There's
It's like
nothing that you can't share now.
Yeah, it's
Right,
like
so
we're all
it's like,
together, and it's like real friends.
In general, we're able to, it strengthened the relationship. I think the honesty, the openness, we're able to share more and understand each other.
She's my best friend.
I love this for them. Presenting as feminine relieves Babs's stress.
She becomes Babs, and she is free of stress, free of aggravation, free of any kind of problems. All the problems that she's had in the past or that day have been released. When the
Almost
week goes
as if
on,
that's her true self.
she's a new person.
But who am I to
Negative
judge?
is only that.
But there's the, again, added stress that they have to hide things from their children.
We have to sneak out of the house because our children don't know either. It leaves questions. I mean, they are constantly looking, the fact that I have a lot of wigs, they don't see me wear wigs. It's a little negative there.
I don't think that it really affects our relationship at all. It's just kind of a thing I do. It's like if you have a partner who likes to do art, you're just going to have a lot more art supplies in the house. Like you might trip over some art supplies every now and then, or an art project might get in the way of something that you're doing. But other than that, it doesn't really affect anything that I know of.
Yeah, I don't really have any issues, obviously.
I really like that, likening it to having a partner who's an artist, where it's just a fact about your partner. It's just a thing.
And like there's supplies that come with it. There's like certain things, like you might go to art shows more often. You might have different things decorating your house, but like still just a person with a hobby.
Yeah, and all your partner's friends may or may not be artists.
Right.
It's like, oh no, I found out that my partner is an artist.
Right.
What am I going to do? What does this mean about roles?
There's all these paintbrushes everywhere, and
what are we going to tell the children?
Splatter paint on the walls. And
what if the children get into art? It'll ruin their lives.
I don't want my children to be pansy artists.
Right. What if my child becomes a sculptor?
That's probably the
real depressed.
And starving artist is a thing for a reason. But
hey, yeah, I'm relearning the joys of eating ramen and rice and toast.
Yep.
There isn't that male-female separation between what's male and what's female. It's sort of like it's blended together, so now you don't have that.
You're just
that
all
separation.
people.
That's right. We're people. Like you said, we're true. We're true to being ourselves.
And our relationship.
Do you think that could be very threatening to some people, though, to blur the line? For a lot of people who feel very comfortable with very rigid rules about what the roles are, when you blur those roles, wouldn't that make people be nervous? How would you answer that kind of, if a wife came to you and said, I'm concerned about this blurring of roles, what would you tell them?
They say that gender roles don't matter as much as being yourself, and supporting your spouse and sharing.
Well, with our relationship all the way down the line since we were married, and I mean, I've only known about the cross-dressing for the last 3 years, we have always shared everything. Whether it's the duties around the house because we both work. It's just one more thing that we've shared. If you're not secure enough in who you are, and you can't let your spouse be as secure as they can be in what they truly are, then you're losing. And a big part of their relationship will be behind a door that she will never know, and she will never understand the person totally. I understand Nancy a lot better now, and why some things happened earlier in the marriage now, because I know why it was happening.
Look at that.
That was all,
like,
of
you've
course,
got,
prior to when I communicated.
You have husbands who are not leaning into weaponized incompetence of like, well, I'm a man, I don't know how to do laundry. I'm a man, I don't know how to do the dishes. It's just, you're just people. Look at you! Look at you!
That fine line is kind of blurred. I think it's important and meaningful that it is blurred.
And if people that are, quote, from straight relationships think that they don't compromise, then they don't communicate either.
Right.
It's all a balance. Instead of two opposites, makes it easier to balance by coming closer together and understanding each other.
And I absolutely love that for them. It's adorable.
It helps that you've always been able to communicate, and this was just an added little something that they had to tell you.
It's like finding out that your spouse is an artist. It's just an added little something that they have to tell you. It's literally not a big deal. And if it's just an added little something, if it's just clothes, then why don't they tell their kids? I don't know.
I'm really bad at gender roles. I don't understand. Like, I don't really get them. I don't get why there's gender roles and like what they are. Like, I drive. Chris doesn't drive.
Well, that's because Chris is the woman in the relationship.
Exactly. Yeah, I was gonna bring that up.
But I crochet, and I sew.
How dare?
And I cook. Chris cleans.
Yeah.
Are you saying you both do the woman's work of the relationship?
Kind of, yeah.
And I don't know what the man work is.
Obviously, it's the, you know, important things.
Yeah.
I just listed the important things. I've never really understood gender roles. I'm not good at them. I don't see a point. I just do things that I'm good at and that I enjoy, and Chris does the same.
I claim to be the wife, but because that's just something I like to do.
That's cute.
Just likes being called wife more than husband.
Yeah.
That's adorable. When I was living as a man, I was trying so hard to fall into a gendered role. I was trying so hard to live the life that was prescribed for me, and I wanted my wife to live the life that was prescribed for her, because if I have to do it, you have to do it kind of thing. It was gross. It was toxic. I was not a good person when I was a man. It was gross. Gendered roles in relationships are only fun if you do them for fun. They're only fun if everybody consents. And I don't think that they should be drawn by gender so much as personal strengths. I don't think being born with a penis makes you better at having a job. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life.
I would say that as long as you both feel healthy, balanced, and happy in the relationship, that it doesn't really matter who does what roles.
Yeah, I would agree.
As long as all of the needs of the relationship and the household are met, why does it matter who does what?
It's weird to like assign those things when anyone could really do those things.
Right.
Let me ask you how important you feel that communicating and negotiating, communication skills, negotiation skills, how big a role does that play in your relationship? And not just with cross-dressing, but your entire relationship.
They continue to emphasize that communication is key to their relationships.
Oh, it's the whole ball of wax.
That's the whole thing. There's no question.
It's the whole ball of wax.
That's right.
What kind of marriage could you
Let's
have?
try Carol and Babs. Tell me how important it is.
What kind of marriage could you possibly have if you don't communicate? And if I couldn't communicate, then I have the problem. It's so important to understand the other person. You're living with this person, you want to know all that you can about them and comfort them.
It's wild because open communication like this is not the kind of thing that got stressed in heterosexual relationships when I was coming up.
And sometimes it's very hard to face the truth and tell somebody else the truth. I think there's less game playing in the cross-dressing community than in the regular world.
All the fronts have been broken down.
I mean, obviously it's pretty important. Communication is the key to any good relationship.
Yeah.
But
and I think that our communication skills are pretty decent. Like, we're not always perfect. There's sometimes where we don't communicate well all the time.
Blame that on our Mars and Libra.
Right. But we eventually are able to, sometimes we just have to like, wait a minute, let feelings pass, and then come back and be like, okay, so.
Yeah, we both tend to get emotional whenever things come up. And it's usually little things. It's never like anything huge.
Men getting emotional? Are you getting in touch with your feminine sides?
What's crazy is I find men more emotional than women a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Especially myself. I'm a very emotional person. A lot of the women that I've been around my entire life kind of aren't unless they really need to be.
Because if a woman is emotional, she's shamed for it.
Yeah, you're right. Apparently.
That's okay. Men get shamed for being emotional too, just for different reasons.
Yep.
Yeah.
And different sorts of emotions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Women are shamed for being angry. Men are shamed for being sad.
Facts.
Okay, that's the communication part. What about negotiating and compromise?
So Joanne mentions that Jody said there had been compromises, and Shar tilts her head. In this way, I, again, don't know how to read her face.
Let's try with Shar and Jody, because Jody indicated that there was some issues when he first told you. So what kinds of negotiating and compromises have you worked at?
And Jody quickly redirects and seems to be playing damage control.
You're talking about like over the years and how we started like a lot.
A lot, yeah. We compromise a lot, you know. We
do in everything we do.
Yeah, in everything we do.
Life.
It's not just in the cross-dress.
But then Shar throws me for a loop and says that she doesn't think that compromise is the right word, indicating that you can just be in a relationship and live together without sacrificing large swaths of who you are.
I think it's real important because we have to make each other happy.
I'm concerned with her, she's concerned with me. It's not something
I don't think negotiating is the right word.
You don't sit down and negotiate. I feel for you,
do
you
it
feel
for
me.
each other because you love each other.
But again, Shar is giving up a lot less than Jody is if Jody is actually transgender and Shar is in a relationship with a man, if that makes any sense. At this point, during a rewatch, my youngest little robot, turns out, was casually eavesdropping on the video, commented, "They look really nervous," and pointed at Jody and Shar. She said, "The other ones are just answering questions, but these two look tense."
Sometimes what happens is a crossdresser will state a position, I want this, and that's it.
I mean, just look at Jody.
Or a wife will say, I want you to stop, and that's the end of it. There's no open door for compromise there.
The others talk about broaching the subject of your gender presentation to your partner as if it were an option that you lay on the table.
Rather than placing it almost as a demand on your spouse, instead you're going to present it as an option or a concept.
Or maybe something has been thrown out onto the table and it's kind of left there, but the other person thinks about it, and then they bring it up when they feel that they're ready and comfortable with it.
I think
it's not, I don't think, I know with Nancy and I, if there were a demand put on the table.
Rather than negotiate implying an adversarial relationship, I think we both have the same overall goal, each other's welfare.
But still, there is an overall emphasis on being on the same team, as opposed to being adversaries who need to be negotiated with. So, gotta commend them for it. Communication skills are everything. If you have a good partner that you can communicate with, your fights are about dumb little things. They aren't about fundamental things. When I was in relationships where I was not allowed to be my authentic self to my fullest, there were negotiations and compromises and fights, and I hated it. And I have managed to find partners that are on the same wavelength as me, and negotiations and compromises are about, do I go up to visit you this time, or do you come down to visit me? Do we split the check, or do I pick up the bill this time?
Sometimes. So the first thing that pops into my mind is that I love soup. Chris does not like soup that much. He doesn't hate it, but I could.
Sorry,
you could.
I like your potato soup. I'm just not always in the mood for soup.
I could eat soup every single day of the week.
I make a mean beef carbonade.
I'll try anything once.
It's got sirloin tips and bacon and an onion broth that cooks for hours with the beef.
That sounds amazing.
And the onions just fall right off the bone.
Well, now I want soup.
Do you? Today is the day that you want soup.
Well, they described a very good sounding soup.
I'll send you the recipe.
I've eaten your potato soup a lot the last few times you've made it, okay?
But this is the kind of like disagreements that we have. It's little things like that, and it's pretty easy compromise. Like, I want soup, he don't want soup. We plan for soup another day and just kind of have to eat soup that day.
Or we just eat soup. Y'all just eat soup and I'll eat something else.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a big deal.
So there's compromises and things with like, if I want to watch something but he's playing games on the TV, then I can either ask if I can watch something later that day or on a different day. Like today, I have Monday off. If on Thursday I had been like, man, I want to play a video game, but Chris is playing at the time, so I could ask like, hey, I have Monday off. Do you mind if I play? Compromise is really easy because we're both very willing to make time and space for each other.
You know what I think is the wildest thing is, like, there's so many cute gay relationships where people are like, oh yeah, we have to compromise. You know, she doesn't like watching me eat the string cheese by biting into it, so I just, I do it when she's not looking. Like really simple things. Meanwhile, like, straight people are like, yeah, there's compromise in a relationship. Sometimes I want, like, this massive thing in my life that requires a lot of my partner, and my partner's not into that. And my partner instead wants this massive thing that is a real game breaker, for a real, like, deal breaker for me. And so, sometimes we just don't see each other because we're just off, like, living our own lives and, like, trying not to piss each other off. It's so weird. And I used to live that life where everybody tells you, oh yes, it's vital. Compromising who you are, being 50% of a person is vital to your relationship. And it was just normalized. It was so gross.
I've found that being with Chris has helped me be more myself because he supports me and the things that I like to do. And it's less of me compromising. I'm the kind of person that, like, won't want to do something if I think it'll upset someone else. Not even confirming that it'll upset somebody else, but I just won't do it because I think it'll bother someone else. But Chris will ask me, like, hey, do you want to do something? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And will encourage me to do things that I want to do. So I've had less compromise and more openness in being myself.
And I feel the same way.
God, that's beautiful.
Thanks.
I want to talk a little bit about extended family, about friends, about children, about brothers, sisters, parents, even people that you work with. Has there been any overflow? Has there been any kind of impact at all on this, what's called extended family, in terms of cross-dressing in the relationship? How has it changed the way you interact with those people in your lives.
None of their family knows, but their friends are becoming more and more queer. And there's stress of not mixing the groups.
Well, we have friends, and then we have friends.
And if the groups do mix, they still don't talk about it? They don't mention how they met?
It's difficult because we do have a lot of friends that want to know where we found these new friends. And we're going away for a weekend in the Poconos with these new friends. And how come you didn't invite us? So that's the only difficult part with the friends. I mean, there's no way I'd be comfortable in
straight
telling
friends will understand your queer
we
friends,
found wonderful
sister.
friends here and throughout where we live that are cross-dressers.
But maybe they will.
And I feel a different camaraderie with a cross-dressing couple than I do with my regular friends. I say normal friends, but I don't mean it that way because I think this is normal.
We have friends on both sides too, and as far as the extended family knowing, none of our extended family knows. Something that we have together that nobody else really shares with us, except for our other cross-dressing friends.
Which are a big part of our life now. Our
very big part.
Friends
Yeah, very big part.
When we came to the Poconos, we met Babs and Carol, and they have become a significant part of our lives. The families have met as a group, so we have become both normal and cross-dressing friends.
My children know at least 8 of the couples that we know as cross-dressers.
It's like great, isn't it?
As regular people.
Right,
right.
And it's all in the straight community.
In the straight, yeah.
I don't know if I can handle that.
We handle that.
Yeah.
We handled it, and by keeping them literally in the dark about it, by having them meet our new friends, they realize that, well, these are nice people, and these are people that, they'd like their mom and dad to become associated with and do things with.
Right.
It has softened everything so much for them that now it's natural. It's fine.
There has been an impact on friends and extended family. I lost about all of my friends when I came out. I had to get a whole new batch of friends. They're way cooler now. It's totally fine. I miss maybe 2 of those people that I lost. I don't miss them hard enough to go back to being a man just to be their friend. That's gross. I also lost about half of my family. My whole mother's side of the family, I don't have contact with my birth mother. My dad's side of the family, yeah. You all are great, and I hope you watch this. I love all of you. Thank you.
I don't talk to most of my extended family. That's both my choice and theirs. When I came out, they chose to be mean and nasty to me or just disrespectful, and I chose to not engage.
Can you tilt the camera down real
since
quick?
they have nothing nice to say to me, I have nothing to say back.
Not really. Not on my mom's side, anyway. But I don't really have any contact with my dad's side, so I don't really know how they would feel about it. I have a couple of them on Facebook, and they seem generally pretty cool, but I don't really talk to them. But my mom's side, all completely understanding and respectful and supportive.
And welcoming.
And very welcoming, and I'm very lucky to have them. In fact, when I came out to them, they were like, yeah, we know. We figured you were spending a lot of time with Eric. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense.
Oh my god.
And I guess I've always been a little fruity. So
a little.
This guy's oops all berries. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ain't no regular Captain Crutch. All berries.
Okay, let's stay on the subject of children. A lot of times, and I've heard this happen to people who end up getting divorced, the argument is used that because the father is a crossdresser, he can't be a good parent, and the mother doesn't want them to see the kids.
God, that was used against me in divorce court.
How do you feel about being a crossdresser? How do you feel about your partner being a crossdresser in terms of also being a parent? Can a crossdresser be a good parent? Is that possible?
It really looks like Jody is walking a tightrope, and maybe that's just the poor girl's face. I hate bringing up the way that Jodie looks in this, because she is gorgeous and she seems to be having the time of her life, but I mean, look at the poor girl. However, when they all speak, they emphasize being gentle and caring with their children instead of imposing roles and ideals on them.
A boy or a girl?
No, I think it's a little early to start imposing roles on it, don't you?
I think definitely they can probably be a better parent because they can see things from both sides. I guess I just think they can be a better parent.
I don't judge them as much as I might if I was a total male in the male role as to what they should be like and how they should feel about people of different races, creeds, sexual preferences, etc. If you have boys, you're not going to raise them necessarily with a strict, a macho hand like they must go out and play football or they must do things that are necessarily boyish in nature.
There's definitely more sensitivity toward the children. I'm perhaps a little more broad-minded. I think I'm a better parent for that.
She really is. She's calmer about a lot of things, since a lot of the stress goes out when she cross-dresses.
I think they're definitely better parents. There's no question. She's so much more sensitive. She can talk to our kids about anything.
Their friends do come over.
Yeah, their friends come over to the house, and they really can't understand how we can be so open and that our kids will just come and talk to us. It doesn't matter if it's something about school, something sexual, whatever. You know, it's just real open, and it's all to do with the cross-dressing.
And being less judgmental.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
definitely so.
And teaching them to be less judgmental in the process.
And they're more understanding and sensitive and open-minded with their children. No negative effect.
Number the child, measure it, blood type it, and isolate it.
So actually this argument was used against me. It was kind of fundamental to everything that the divorce lawyer was on about. To the point where I got accused in these modern times of teaching the children black magic. It's ridiculous. The kids have two moms who love them. And having two parents who love you is a beautiful thing. And it doesn't matter what's between their legs or how they look or how they dress.
A parent is a parent, and there's a lot of children who are not lucky enough to have any. So if there's a child who has one or two or more, they're a very lucky child, I think. And as long as those parents are considerate, you can still be a good parent and be queer. I don't see that being queer has anything to do with being a parent.
Exactly.
Because it's like having a parent who is an artist. Like, you just have a parent who's an artist. Yeah, you're going to be raised seeing a lot more art and understanding a lot more about art, but that doesn't mean you're going to be an artist. That doesn't mean that you're going to have all artist friends or anything. That just means that you know a lot about art and you understand art.
I feel like it was just, you're probably just going to be more open to exposing your kids to the culture. That could be more of a good thing than a bad thing to me. Again, like Eric said, I don't see how that governs your ability to raise a child.
Yeah.
Do you think you will ever tell your children?
Sandy says that if her partner died before her, she would just dispose of her partner's gear and basically take the secret to her grave.
If Nancy were to pass away before me, the clothes would just be gotten removed. It would be the extent of it. If I pass away before Nancy, then Nancy would call the kids in and have a talk, because we wouldn't want them to find out if something happened to Nancy afterwards.
Carol and Babs feel that if the kids ask, or if it comes up, somehow they feel that they would be able to tell their kids, but they don't have plans to.
If my children would ask, or any one of them would ask, I think we would be able to tell them because they'd be mature enough. A 5-year-old, I don't think would understand either. But our children are old enough that they would understand. We are not
but that's the thing.
going to run and tell them.
5-year-olds do understand, but
the time
it's
comes
1993.
where we have to. If they ask me, I will be honest with them.
I can get behind that more than intentionally hiding it forever. It's like, they don't need to know, but if they ask, it's like, oh yeah, mom, I don't know, your other mom likes to be pretty on the weekends, you know? All right, dad, whatever, cool. Jody says she'd like them to know, and it wouldn't make any difference.
If the situation comes up, then definitely we would tell them, we would be truthful with them. We're not going to lie to them. We have one child that is nosy, and I really think that she has a hint, of what's going on.
I'd really like them to know. I'm real close with them every day with everything else, and it just would be nice to share with them.
Yeah.
I don't think they need to know, and I don't even know if it would make any difference. It's part of me that I don't get a chance to share with them, and it would be really nice to share that part with them.
And again, their kids are all middle to high school age.
Ours are 16 and 17.
12 to 23.
17 and 19.
They're mature enough to know. Tell them! There was a big push for me to never tell the children. Even one of my own lawyers actually told me that there were certain aspects of my life that my children shouldn't know until they're adults. And I'm not talking about, like, private bedroom things. I'm talking about, like, who I date and how I look. Honestly, it's ridiculous, because imagine growing up and finding out that for 15 years of your life, your parents lied to you because they thought you didn't need to know this super important thing. I think it would shatter any trust my children had for me. Here's a very 1993 question that I'm not asking you to answer so much as I'm asking you to have you respond to it. The question is, do you think you will ever tell your children?
So our children will probably know from birth, basically. They'll be raised with me acting as I am, and they'll know. I don't think that it's something that I would be able. I'm not good at hiding anything. I'm not even good at like hiding gifts.
I feel that.
It's not something that I would be interested in hiding, and I don't think it's something that I can hide.
Yeah, it's going to be real hard to miss.
Imagine hiding who you are from your children for 18 plus years, and then they either find out on accident or find out when you die.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
Like, I had this loving parent, but they lied to me my entire life. Now I've been radicalized.
From the kid's point of view, I feel like that would be more devastating than just knowing, because like then you can talk to the parent and like you can build a new relationship, or you can continue the relationship that you had with them.
I know if I was the kid, I'd be like, it wouldn't even be like the contents of the lie itself. It would just be like, oh, why did you feel the need to not tell me this for so long?
Why didn't you think that I would understand, or that I wouldn't be able to handle that, or why was I not included?
Yeah.
Basically. It's a really weird question, because, like, am I going to tell my children that I'm me? They're going to see me.
Yeah.
They're going to know me.
It's going to be weird, like, telling them the same things that they're already probably going to experience with us anyway.
To be fair, this question was directed towards closeted.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fair.
So, like, the question of, do you think you will ever tell your children is kind of dark.
Yeah.
For the record, I would tell them.
Yeah. If it was something that I could keep secret and was keeping secret from, like, the rest of the world and from my family and things like that, I feel like I would be as close, I hope that I'll be as close with my children as I am with my partner. Like, we're a close family. I don't want to have like too many like social barriers with my kids. So I think it's something that I would share with them, because like, one, they live in the same house as me. Yeah. And secondly, like, again, keeping it a secret could be very harmful to the relationship that I have with my children.
We're at the end. I want to close this up. For all the couples out there watching this video, for all the women out there watching this video, what is the one key thing, one key message that you want to send to that woman who's sitting there watching this video, wondering what the hell's going on with her relationship?
The ending remarks seem to be kind of a mixed bag. They say that you weren't alone. They say to ask your queer partner how to find resources.
The wife has got to know that she is not the only wife out there, and she has people that she can share and find out information from, and share her feelings and find out what the other wives are feeling.
Then they say, even though he dresses in a dress, he's still her husband, and It's just clothes.
Each wife needs to know that her husband, even though he dresses in a dress, is still her husband.
Right.
And that they still have the same relationship. He's still the same person in a dress or out of a dress. It's the person you married, the person you fell in love with.
In other words, it's just clothes.
Same person.
She has
more or less it is.
She has
Just
to
better.
learn that,
More genuine.
that she has to make adjustments, but those adjustments will be worth it in the end, because when you get a best friend out of a situation, it makes a difference.
If you love the person before, you'll love them afterwards.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for being here. Everybody freeze.
Thank you.
I'm holding hands. It's so cute.
Now, you'll find additional help in my book, Coping with Crossdressing, Tools and Strategies for Couples in a Committed Relationship.
I'm gonna get a copy of that book. If you feel like you're the only person in this situation, you're not. Honestly, there are tons of people like you. There are tons of people who are going through more or less of the same situation as you. You can reach out. You can join groups. It's going to be okay. You have to communicate with each other, and you have to find people outside of your relationship that you can talk to who are going through the same kind of thing. If it makes you deeply uncomfortable, please do what's best for everybody and leave on good terms. Don't destroy them on your way out. We're vulnerable enough as it is. And yeah, if you're afraid of change, your partner is going to change, but they're going to become a better person. And if you're into that, I think it's worth it.
There's a lot of people out there. Somebody is experiencing maybe not the exact same thing, but something very similar. You're never alone in experience. And we're all just people. Like, no matter what we do or how we present or any of that, we're just people. We're all trying to live the same life, basically.
It's very unlikely that anyone is alone in any situation. Like, I'm sure here humans experience a lot of the same things all the time, but that information doesn't get, spread a whole lot of the time.
Yeah.
So people feel kind of isolated, but that's not the case. There's always a large majority probably going through the same stuff you are, and they're willing to listen and understand.
New Jezebel Spirit soda, bursting with flavors: lemon, lime, grapefruit, orange, and cherry.
Spirit flavor with Jezebel Spirit.
Then we add vanilla, cinnamon, ginger, mint, and licorice.
Live a good life with Jezebel Spirit.
Don't forget the bubblegum, butterscotch, pineapple, coconut, and jalapeno.
Have it all with Jezebel Spirit.
Jezebel Spirit, when you need it all at the same time.
Overall, watching this video for the 5th time and doing all the interviews reminded me how important our voices are. It showed me that there are loving people everywhere, regardless of gender, sexuality, and class. Maybe it doesn't feel like it, but these people didn't even have the internet and found community. And they are so sweet to each other. Even if some of the things they said were a little cringe. I feel like if things get worse for us, we'll still always find ways to make it work. Burn our books, we will write new ones. Take our videos off public platforms, and we will circulate tapes. We are queer, and we have always been here. Well, Amy, is there any last thing you want to say?
You can do it too. There are no rules. You make the rules. You break the rules. Take every single little piece of presentation, whether that's gender, whether that's sexuality, whether that's clothes, makeup, hair, or anything. Take what you want, break it, put it together again. Make your own Frankenstein of gender. Be that Frankenstein, and you will be happier than you ever were before.
God, I love that. Thank you so much.
They're not going to stop me, though. They couldn't if they tried. They wouldn't understand it if they tried, and I won't let them.
Good. I'm glad. Amy, it has been a delight. You are an amazing human being. I'm going to eat some food and then go live.
You should do that.
Night. Love you much.
Bye.
Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Just be happy. Take care of yourself. Protect your own light.
Stay queer? I don't know.
Let's be queer. I am.
I usually try to put a positive spin on things. I am having my best life, given my present circumstances, which are not ideal. But I don't think anyone would do this if they weren't serious. When I said finding community is what kept me alive, so did living as my authentic self in the first place. I was too depressed. Once I realized I was not a man, even though I had the body of one and the social and legal roles, perceptions, etc. in society, I was too depressed to continue living as one. Imagine waking up one day and nothing is correct. You look in the mirror and it's wrong. You look around your interpersonal relationships and they're wrong. It can be overwhelming. Having supportive people in my life has been hard to learn how to do. I grew up in a toxic family, and because that's all I knew, I got into toxic relationships. Love life, work, social spheres, religion. If you grow up queer in a non-accepting, non-affirming community, then it can make you feel like a space alien, a monster. And when you get rid of those people, it can be difficult to know a good friend, a good lover when you see them. It can be difficult even after finding yourself in a stable, loving relationship to know what to do with yourself. Where's the fighting? Where's the constant struggle for power? Where are the roles we impose on each other? Where are the unmeetable expectations? But I can tell you one thing. I don't feel like a space alien or a monster anymore. I feel like me. I love myself and who I've become. In many ways, I'm stepping back into the shoes that I had when I was in high school and college. I'm becoming more of who I envisioned myself being. And most of the time, gender doesn't even have anything to do with it. I'm creative. I'm productive. I'm loving, and I had stopped being many of those things when I tried suppressing who I truly am inside. It was like going into a dark, angry, resentful, man-shaped cocoon for about 10 years, then re-emerging as who I was supposed to be in the end. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. Listen to your heart and listen to others. We're all humans sharing the same planet, and we have one life on it. You are important to someone. I'll wager a group of somebodies. And we are all rooting for you. Another thing I learned is this video is very big. If you made it this far, I cannot thank you enough for sticking with me. There are more interviews I'm going to be doing as follow-ups, so be on the lookout for those. Special thanks to everyone who helped me out this month, especially Amy, Eric, Chris, Olivia, Zed, SO, Maya, Golden Liar, Bridget, and Skelly. You are the VHS tape that is currently stuck in my backup VCR. You keep doing your thing, and I'll catch you on the data stream. Thank you for joining. I've been Arrow Zed of Onion Belly Advertising. If you would like to subscribe to our newsletter, please write to this address. That's the end of the tape? That's the end of the tape.